Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rosé in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here and Jack Canat. All the lights are currently lit here on track. And it is go, go, go! Donoso with a crafty maneuver up the inside. Masterclass from the Chilean.
Crucial championship points on offer here.
Do not count out Danny Berezne.
Longe has done the job. This is for the win between these two.
Freddie Rasmussen wins the United States Grand Prix.
Alfie Butcher wins for the first time ever. Lucas Blakely takes the championship. It's Barry Foreman.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to PSGL. After 4 races done here in season 37, we've come out with 4 different race victors. Will we see any different here at Spa this afternoon? My name's TK, and alongside me in the box is the wonderful Jack Canan. Jack, how are you doing?
Very good. 4 different races, 4 different comms lineups we've had so far this season. But great to be alongside you, TK, as for the first time, obviously. This is our first time being paired together. So we'll see how this goes. Belgium, of course, steeped in history when it comes to the Formula 1, especially with PSGL. Lots of first-time winners have come here before. We've had amazing races over the years, so really excited to see how this goes. Plenty of storylines to talk about, a close championship fight, and we'll see who's going to come out on top here. But let's see if we can keep that different winner streak rolling. We've got 4 different winners, and we were talking about before we came to air, TK, anyone who started on pole so far this season has not even made the podium. It's a hell of a stat, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I think the highest a pole sitter has finished here in this season is 6th place, and that was in round number 3. So, I mean, Spa could cause catastrophe amongst the grid as it is, let alone round 5. When it comes to pole positions and win conversion rates, the statisticians at home will be going absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we do love stats around here, and we, there's one stat that's been ruined now because of a certain Freddie Rasmussen, that every PSGL champion went on to win the F1 Esports Championship in the same year, but didn't quite happen this year. But up until then, we had the record. But plenty to talk about. We had first-time winners here in previous. If we go all the way back to season 1 of this championship, it was a certain Philip Preschnader who took a victory around here out of seemingly nowhere. Took his first victory here as well after Barry Bormand, of course, sped behind the safety car. So it was all about when he was on his winning streak. So let's see if we can get something different here as well. We've had different pole sitters. None of them have even made the podium. So in that regard, you really don't want to be qualifying or even making it into Q3, because we've had guys win from outside the top 10 multiple times this season. We're very excited. In terms of the point standings, of course, it's still all to play for after 5 rounds, but it is still at the top of the standings.
It certainly is indeed. They are on your screen at the moment. We've gone with the team standings first. That wasn't what I was intending, but we will roll with it. Red Bull Racing top the Constructors' Championship, 45 points to their name. Kick Sauber, 1 point behind them, of course, the pairing of Thomas Ronhart and Brendan Lee. So that could be interesting to see how the Constructors' Championship comes to blows. And now the one you have been waiting for, the Drivers' Standings, as you previously mentioned, Jarno Opmeer topping those points with 40 to his name. Brendan Lee in P2 and Thomas Manley with 34. Of course, Brendan Lee not racing here this afternoon, so could be losing a considerable amount of points and at least places as well.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. And again, Jarno Opmeer, Brendan Lee, top of the championship. Lucas Blakely as well, they're in 4th place. And the surprise package, I think, from last time was Duncan Hofland in Saudi Arabia, managed to come away with a victory there as well after probably an incredibly crazy race. We've had a crazy race every single season, or every single race so far. We're heading into qualifying in just a few moments, TK. And what I can say is it's very, very cloudy around the track here in Spa. So I really sense there's some rain on the way here.
I think you could be absolutely right. It's looking very overcast, and I'm sure we'll switch to that in just a couple of moments' time once drivers head out, do their preparatory laps. We know how often drivers like to head out on intermediates if they're prepping for a run or doing something like that. We have got a brief word from Brendan Lee, just taking us through a quick lap guide here, and we'll play that and then we'll head into qualifying.
Welcome to tonight's track here for PSGL at one of the most iconic circuits on the Formula 1 calendar, Spa. Here is tonight, opening up the DRS across the start-finish line just after the 100-meter board, down into 3rd gear. Let the car rotate, nibble the inside curbing, and use as much outside curbing as you feel confident to do so. And now rising up through Eau Rouge and Ravion, easily flat out in a modern Formula 1 car. It's all about minimising your distance and path of resistance. Opening up the DRS, keep the car to the left-hand side of the track, and just before the 50-meter board on the left-hand side, inside. You'll be braking hard and using up all the inside curbing possible right up to the limit of the track, letting the car rotate and using up all the exit curb as well. Easy to understeer through here, so you'll be down in third gear, let the front axle pick up its grip and then rotate through No Name, that ironically has been dubbed No Name, as going up into P1 that is easily flat out in a modern Formula 1 car machinery, going into pit path, or also known as the Fangio chicane, a right then left, just lifting the throttle hard back on the power for the exit, and now ultra critical to square off the exit as much as possible here to open up traction going into the pretty much full speed, full throttle final sector of the lap. Going through Blanchimont easily flat out here, and then going into the final chicane, spot the 100-meter board, and then you're braking hard down into third gear, clump over the inside curb again, open up the steering wheel, get maximum traction, and this is a lap here at Spa ahead of PSGL.
Well, what an insight from Brendan Lee there, taking us through the twists and turns of this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Gutting that he can't be here to race this afternoon, because it's always fantastic to see him out amongst the grid, isn't it, Jack?
It is, yeah, and we like to see a championship fight between those two. Jarno Watmere and Brendan Lee, two former F1 Esports world champions, of course, and well used to the limelight. But of course, this is good for Jarno's championship if we think about it that way. You know, he's leading the championship with 40 points, 2 points clear of Brendan Lee. Brendan Lee not here, and neither is his other championship rival, which is Lucas Blakely. He's fourth in the championship. So his nearest rival is, of course, Tom Manley, who's third in the championship. Now we say that there's a big gap. There really isn't. There's only about 6 points between them, really. But it's an opportunity for Jarno to try and open the gap here if he possibly can, but also a chance for Tom Manley to jump a few positions in the championship if he so wants to do that as well. So plenty to talk about. A few reserves in, of course. Of course, you did hear Lucas Blakely is not here with us this evening. So it's Philip Preschneider who's in for driving for McLaren today as well, which is interesting because I did allude to it earlier on that Philip did take his first ever PC F1 victory here all the way back about 6 seasons ago. So I wonder, is there a repeat on the cards?
Oh, you never know. They do say lightning never strikes twice, but when it comes to history in Belgium, sometimes it quite often does. Drivers have gone out and done their preparatory intermediates runs. We're going to have a quick look at our track map for this afternoon, and then let's head into qualifying. So here we go then. If you're not familiar with Belgium already, it is on your screens. 4.352 miles, 19 turns, and 2 DRS zones is what makes up our battleground for this afternoon. It is going to be a fascinating race. 22 laps around here. Get any spicy.
Certainly cannot. No, you've got plenty of overtaking opportunities throughout the lap as well. You've got plenty of hairpins, plenty of hard braking zones to be able to do. And of course, we do like a game. We mentioned it yesterday when we were doing tests for the stream, TK. DRS chicken. We like that term. There's going to be plenty of that down the Kemmel Straight. And again, last lap moves as we would expect. 3 minutes left until we would expect cars to come back out onto the circuit. Of course, and a few guys go out on intermediate tires. Of course, that's just to check their settings and stuff like that. So no real change in any of the positions so far. Right here, a man who really likes this track though is Barry Bormand. So he's going to be one to try and gain back some points, of course, and a few others as well. We're waiting for him to come out onto the track here, TK. But there is, of course, a story that has broken today for a certain Joni Tormola, because, of course, everyone was sort of thinking that Jarno was the one going to go to Alpine. But if you did miss the announcement, of course, Joni Tormola is now an Alpine driver.
He certainly is indeed. The announcement came via Twitter, or X if you want to call it that, just a couple of hours ago. You saw it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Alpine Sim Racing on their official channels did announce it. And I'd tell you what, one heck of a signing for them to be able to bring such an experienced driver in and have them race. They may have had Jarno Watmere slightly teased in their face, but that is probably as best as you're going to get as a not a backup, but as a second option.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, Alpine have had quite a young team up until now. So, and of course, now they're partnered with G2, which are now, of course, were formerly Red Bull, of course, but now Alpine and G2 together. So Joni Tormela, of course, moving across, and you'd imagine he's going to take team lead there. But a great signing for Alpine to take him on board for Alpine. So it'll be interesting to see now. Now, of course, we don't get to actually see him in an Alpine right now because if you are, of course, noticing that everyone is in the F1 World Car because unfortunately there is still an issue with the team cars, of course, the normal cars. Even though if you race on equal, they're still not quite equal. It might be small margins, but of course that does matter in F1 sim racing as well. So we've got to keep that in mind. So we won't see Joni Tormela in his official Alpine colours just yet, but we will await to see that in the near future. But it is nice to see the Ferraris back, TK. Barry Borman and Nicolas Longuet back on the grid as well. And they're certainly, I think, going to be ones to keep our eyes on here today as well. And, it's holding up to be a great season. 4 different winners in the first 4 races. And the last time we actually got that many different winners, I think, was actually the first season of PCF1. We got to 5, I think, in the end. But we will see how that goes in the end. But 4 different winners so far. But judging off the statistics, don't start on pole.
Well, that is what statistics have been saying. Of course, we've mentioned it hasn't been the best start for our pole position sitters in the opening 4 races of this season. We'll keep an eye on what to do. Apologies for the folks at home. We jumped over to the grid a little bit prematurely, but I can see engineers in the garages getting ready to send drivers out, notably at the bottom right-hand side of your screens. At least one car about to head out. A beautiful black and lime green emblazoned car, as is a slightly scarlet red car. So we'll keep an eye on that in mere moments to come. But as you've said, not only does pole position not tend to favour drivers in Season 37 here of PSGL, it doesn't seem to favour drivers at Spa either.
No, it doesn't. So that's one to keep in mind. Or maybe today is the day that the trend gets booked. We don't know. We'll wait and see, of course. You will, of course, notice as well that ghosting and collisions are turned... Well, ghosting is turned on. Collisions are off. That is, of course, due to the immense advantage the slipstream gives you on this game, so that drivers have agreed to turn that off to give us even playing field as possible. So you'll see plenty of the drivers around. So now every single car is out on the track except for Tom Manley and Jarno Watmere. So that just shows you, well, Istvan Pukki's on his way out now as well. So it's just Tom Manley who's left in the pit lane, who's now 3rd in the championship. But it's going to get busy for us here in the comments box for just a few moments, and I think there are still a few guys still making their way around. So these are, of course, the initial laps of Q1, but of course everyone's left it so late, I suppose, in a way. They're maybe to give themselves only 2 runs here, but it's 20 cars out on track here at Spa. Probably unique compared to other circuits because it's so long. It's the longest lap on the calendar.
Yeah, certainly is indeed. You wouldn't often see this in real life racing, but of course the advantage that we have in sim races is that you have these opportunities, especially when ghosting is turned off. Ghosting is turned on in these qualifying sessions. You can get all of the cars on, and actually if you look at the track map at the bottom right hand side of your screens, you can see that they're only covering about half the track length. But Wilson Hughes will take us away for this Q1 session. Just over 8 minutes left, and it's into La Source he goes. This is going to be chaos in a qualifying session, Jack.
It is, yeah. Now it's flat to the mat, as we would say, down towards Eau Rouge and Radion, the redesigned version with the grandstand. It's almost not a corner, is it, with these cars up the hill? He made a little, I would say, a bit of an error into turn number 1. The car didn't really look happy turning in there. And then it's the uphill drag up the Kemmel Straight. It doesn't look uphill, but it's all the way. It's a long drag as they hit 335 kilometers an hour, chucking it into the right and into the left. So these are obviously initial Q1 laps, getting their laps in, but they need to make sure that they don't invalidate the times either as they drop down into the Brussels hairpin now, really throwing the car in there. Wilson Hughes then down into No Name Corner. I mean, it does have a name now, but we're going to keep referring to it as No Name because, again, it's still has no name. It's almost ironic. In towards then Pouon. This is a scary corner. You got to commit all the way through into the left-hand side and then all the way down towards the last sector. Now you can see the cars really moving around as they enter the corner there. Onto the power he goes and down in towards the final couple of corners. Now it looks clean so far. I think maybe Wilson Hughes leaving a bit of margin on the table there. Wants to make sure he gets a banker time on the board at least, because an invalidation around here is going to cost you far more time than in any other circuit on the calendar.
Yeah, it certainly will. Just due to the length of the track, you don't have the opportunity to go back again, go round You might even have under-fueled to a certain degree where you don't have that safety net in the car. But Wilson Hughes through the bus stop chicane, final couple of corners for himself, using all of the track on the exterior to get the power down up towards the line. A 1:41.031 is the benchmark he has set. Danny Berejne almost immediately quicker, as is Otis Lawrence. 1:47.37 for the Aston Martin driver, stepping in as a reserve this afternoon. Barry Burmond goes faster, as does Thomas Ronhaar. The time's already starting to decrease time after time after time, and I think Wilson Hughes could already be on the metaphorical chopping block.
Yeah, well, I think my assessment of his turn one was correct, because it looked really untidy as Thomas Gall goes into fourth place in a 40.8. Still more times to come, of course. Tom Manley is the last car out on the circuit, so we're waiting for him to cross the start-finish line. Rasmussen goes to second, 40.71. More still to come, with a few more. Declan Barrett goes up to 10th there, and Barry Bormand, of course, sitting third at the moment. So more cars still left to go. A couple more. Tom Manley's about to enter the final chicane. Longay's invalidated, so that's not ideal for him. He's going to have to go again and rely on everything on his final run. I think Tormala also invalidated his time. Tom Manley, no such problems, crosses the line now. Only 14th fastest for now, so on the bubble is Tom Manley, so still a bit of work to do. Jake Benham as well, currently in the drop zone, as is Shanaka Clay, Nicholas Longa and Yanni Tormala. Big names in the drop zone there, so all the pressure now on these last few laps around here, and you can see from 6th all the way down to 12th. There's 6 cars separated by 8/100ths of a second. So even the smallest improvement is going to really make you jump up quite a lot. But you would imagine guys like Thomas Ronhaar, Freddie Rasmussen, Barry Bormand, they should be safe on those times.
Yeah, the top leaders at the moment should be fairly safe to not necessarily relax, but you have a little bit of confidence in the lap time that you've set, as you previously mentioned. Though the drivers like Tom Manley, Duncan Hoffland, Jake Benham, Shanaka Clay, drivers that you wouldn't typically expect to see in the bottom 5. Not necessarily that any of our drivers here are slow, but you expect them almost to be closer towards the top. Of course, Duncan Hoffland, infamously quite fast, especially around here in Spa. I've seen him practicing over the course of the week, and he's been quite happy with his pace going on. But Yanni Tormala and Nicholas Longley will have a bit of a mental battle to overcome this afternoon.
Certainly will, yeah. Yanni Tormala in his debut for Alpine, first race for Alpine today. Even though it doesn't look like he's in one. Well, he does have the Alpine Esports livery on that car, so we will be able to at least have some indication as he comes through there. That's definitely an Alpine, so that at least we could sort of see him in Alpine colours here. Yanni Tormala, the first time we've seen him outside of Red Bull colours for a long time. So now Thomas Ronhaar, Barry Bormand, they're happy on their 40.6s and 40.7s. Ronhaar certainly safe on a 40.6, so it's all the case now of who goes again. You would imagine that everybody sort of from Istvan Pukki down, if not Thomas Gall as well, will have to go again. Does Thomas Gall feel safe on a 40.8? Well, it's all in the balance really, because it's so close down towards the end. But you could see there's quite a large gap. But if you look at Wilson Hughes, Tom Manley, it's 4/10 between them and Thomas Ronhaar, with 3 and a bit tenths up there. That's quite a large gap. We see gaps of thousandths of a second separating 10 drivers here in PSGL normally. So that large of a gap, but I suppose it is such a long lap, but 3 and a bit tenths. I mean, it is quite a large gap to make up as Wilson Hughes comes back out.
Yeah, he certainly does indeed. We'll keep an eye on what he does over the course of the session, as Otis Lawrence decides the lap time that he has previously set is quick enough for this afternoon. Nicholas Longate coming out, as does Wilson Hughes, as you previously mentioned. Drivers not necessarily too convinced with their lap times at the moment. Freddie Rasmussen being one of the top 4, also deciding he's gone quicker. And the 2.5 minutes left in this qualifying, it's going to be very, very close, as all the drivers will pretty much start to head back out.
It is certainly going to get busy, absolutely, out on track. Wilson Hughes currently on the outlap. Alvaro Caratons, we haven't really mentioned him today. Alvaro Caratons sitting there nicely in P10, just a couple of thousandths behind Josh Ito at the moment. So it is going to get busy, but the top 5 are safe at the moment. Well, you would assume that they're safe, or they believe they're safe, but everybody from Istvan Pukki down. they feel that they have to go again. Is this Van Pookie going to come out? Doesn't look like it for the moment. He won't have enough time to come around. So we've got a very, very busy track at the moment. Danny Beresnay, currently the top of those guys who have come out. Wilson Hughes, by the looks of it, will be the first car to get us underway for the second runs of Q1. So we'll see if he does enough to secure himself a place in Q2. But it's anybody's guess, really, as to who's going to get knocked out here, because we've got some big names down in the drop zone at the moment, with Jake Benham, Shannon Clay, Nicholas Longe, and Yoni Tormala in the drop zone. Not guys you would expect to see down there. So it really is going to be a slugfest as we head into this final part of qualifying. Wilson Hughes gets us underway.
He does indeed in the McLaren down towards turn number 1. We saw it time and time again, of course. He was the first driver out in the opening runs of this qualifying session. He decides to go again for the second and final runs in this Q1 session. This is where it's absolutely crucial for a lot of our drivers not to invalidate their laps. It all comes down to these final runs. And of course, if you find yourself in the bottom 5 at the moment and invalidate this crucial last run, you will find yourself taking an early shower in this qualifying session. So at the moment, for Nicholas Longe and Yoni Tormula, it's absolutely vital that they stay within those track limits. But Wilson Hughes at the moment, let's see if he's finding time as he heads into Sector 2, the long right-hander just before Puon and into No Name. He's got to be careful. He wants to improve. P13 is hanging in the balance.
He is, yes. He was 600ths of a second up in sector number 1, so he is on an improvement here, but he needs a big improvement in sector 2 and sector 3 here to secure himself a position in Q2. He's in 13th. He's safe at the moment, but he can't afford to have an invalidation as he heads through into the next part of the lap, into the right and into the left. It looks neater and tidier from Wilson Hughes so far. Into sector 2, he'll cross the split in just a few seconds' time as he exits out onto there. He's half a tenth up, so lost 100th through that middle sector, but he is on an improvement, and if he does do that, he'll move to a 40.9. It'll move him up just very slightly in the order, but it might be enough to try and secure himself a place in Q2. Wilson Hughes, then the first car on the last runs of Q1, wants to secure himself a place in the second part of qualifying. Out of the final chicane, he will come out of the bus stop onto the power. Does he do enough to secure himself? He doesn't improve. He improved by 8 thousandths, so now he's relying on everybody else not to improve behind. Nicholas Longe goes fastest, 40.5, so he's certainly safe in that Ferrari. Crossing behind, Danny Beresnay finds an improvement on a 40.722. Couple more cars still to cross the line in the former Jake Benham. He's 18th at the moment. Does he make it out? No! Jake Benham out in Q1. 17th quickest for Jake Benham. That is a shock exit for the young Brit here. Took a great victory here before Alvaro Caraton. He secures himself a place in P7. Wilson Hughes still there on the bubble at the moment. Now Tom Manley is the man in danger. He's in the drop zone at the moment as he comes towards the bus stop chicane. Does he do enough, TK?
That's the question we're all asking Tom Manley. Final couple of corners for himself to save it, but into the pits he goes. He's not going to go quick, and it will be heartbreak for himself. Duncan Hoffland, the other driver, looking to get out, and he has done indeed. P10 with a 140.836, but Jarno Otmir up to P3 as well, saving his qualifying session, and that will be the end of Q1. Wilson Hughes, Tom Manley, Jake Benham, Lenny Pepinter, and Yoni Tormula will be exiting and taking an early shower.
Wow, what a great result in terms for Jarno Otmir, if you think about it that way. Tom Manley, third in the championship, out in Q1 here in Spa. That is a big shock for Tom Manley, who of course was the winner from Silverstone. But yeah, that is not what he needed. 17th he will start for the Belgian Grand Prix. But as we've seen before, it is possible from there. It requires it's got a mountain to climb ahead of him now, but it was Nicholas Longe who went quickest in that part of qualifying. Thomas Ronnar did one run and he made it through on a 40.67. Jarno Otmir, Freddie Rasmussen, Danny Beresnay, Barry Boremand, they're all safely through. And if we scroll down just to the bottom, it's Wilson Hughes, Tom Manley, Jake Benham, Lenny Pepinter and Yoni Tormala who will exit here in Q1. They will take no further parts in qualifying here at Spa. Bit of a shock there, TK, I'm not going to lie. Was expecting Tom Manley to get through there, but now he's got a mountain to climb, starting 17th.
He does indeed. It's not been the best qualifying day at the office for himself, because he finds himself up towards the top end of the drivers' standings and would be looking to gain some crucial points over the likes of Brendan Lee and of course Lucas Blakely, excuse me, mine went blank there. But starting down in P17, it is going to be an almighty mountain to climb. And of course, they already have the height of Spa, 102.2 meters tall, differing in this track. But we are here for a Q2 session, 15 minutes on the timekeeper's clock. And the question is, who's going to make it into our top 10 shootout?
Yeah, it's anybody's guess, really, isn't it? As we await 4 drivers to emerge out onto the circuit. As a quick check of the standings, now the nearest competitor to Jarno Wotmir is now Danny Beresnay, who's made it through to this next part of qualifying. Jarno Wotmir on 40 points, Danny Beresnay on 21 in P5. So, none of his rivals have made it through into the next part. The top 4 have not made it through. Of course, Blakely not racing and Brendan Lee not racing. Tom Manley's out in Q1. So this is looking good so far for Jarno Wotmir. Early stages of the season, of course, keep that in mind. But it will be certainly good for his championship. But Danny Beresnay has an opportunity now. He's got everybody in front of him is either not here or is starting further down the orders. So he's got an opportunity to make a dent in that championship and move himself up maybe a few positions here. But it's going to be an interesting qualifying. Declan Barrett making his way through. Thomas Gall as well. He's the reserve, of course, at Kick Sauber for Brendan Lee. So they'll be happy that he made it through.
Yeah, he will do indeed. Apologies for your viewers at home if you see the safety car out on track. I have no idea what's going on with that. We'll pretend it's not there, and we're going to ignore it. As Freddie Rasmussen heads out for their outlet, they decided to head out of the garages first. Istvan Pukki just behind them as well, of course, taking advantage of the ghosting in these sessions as well. I apologise for the giggles. I've never seen a safety car during qualifying.
It's been a long time, I will say. I've seen it before, but it's been a long time. Safety cars out in qualifying. I personally am predicting Bernd Mailander for pole here, if that's the case, in the safety car. But we'll see. I haven't actually seen it all year because it's been disabled for most of the races this season. So, I mean, it probably felt a bit lonely. Decided to come out and show itself out on the circuit. So, hello, safety car. Hopefully, we don't see you again.
Well, fingers crossed we don't, but Freddie Rasmussen will be the only driver at the moment heading out to start their first timed run here in Q2 as a massive kick out at the exit of La Source. This actually could be a bit of a showing of how poor this first run's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if he does indeed back out, but I think he's going to try and send it anyway to get a delta on the board for himself, potentially use tyres as well, just to make sure that he gets that time, gets the delta for the later runs as well. I think we've also got Danny Beresnay out as well, heading through the La Source. He is indeed. There is the car further around. That is Freddie Rasmussen. Let's run on board with him for his opening lap, but he hasn't validated, Jack.
Yeah, not ideal for Freddie Rasmussen, but again, this will be just a sort of banker run with used tyres, you would assume. So, but it will be, of course, it would be nice for him to have a delta on in the top right of his screen, but not the end of the world that he's invalidated that. In all fairness, but again, not ideal. He'll know not to track extend there next time. Danny Beresnay is the other car out on the circuit now as he comes down to the Brussels hairpin. He's having a bit of a better time of it as he comes down towards No Name corner, chucks it into the left-hand side there. No sign of the old esports line down towards Pouon this time. If it about maybe a game or two ago, drivers would be on the grass going down there to try and get the best line in towards Pouon. If anybody remembers that, as they come into the next part of the lap. Danny Beresnay, of course, P5 in the championship, missed Silverstone, missed Suzuka, apologies, the last time around. So he has already missed a round. We're looking to try and gain some points back here for Danny Beresnay. Very experienced, of course, at Mercedes, and he'll be trying to compete towards the top end, of course, top 5 at the moment of the championship, and wants to get closer to his former teammate now, Jarno Wotmir, of course, who moved over to Red Bull. Lots of moving around in this season so far as he peels into the pit lane to end his banker lap. There's been lots of movements in the F1 sim racing scene. Of course, the latest is Joni Tormela to Alpine. We had Jarno Wotmir to Red Bull, and of course we haven't actually talked about it because it did happen during the week, TK. Otis Lawrence to Aston Martin.
Yeah, fantastic signing for the Aston Martin team. You don't often throw the word prodigy around. Of course, it was used when Jarno Wotmir coming up through the ranks, and maybe a couple of other drivers as well. But Otis Lawrence is one of those drivers that has looked oh so strong in his opening seasons throughout the divisions and throughout the tiers. And now to get that signing with Aston Martin Esports, this could be a start of what has already been a fantastic career for this young man.
Absolutely. Of course, he was part of McLaren for many, many years. Well, it feels like many, many years. I don't even think it was really that long. But he's now, of course, part of the Aston Martin team. Of course, Simon Weigang announced he wouldn't be driving for Aston Martin for the next season. He did say that his esports career is not over, so we will await and see where Simon Weigang is heading very, very soon. But of course, that he was the unfortunate victim, I suppose, of the Otis Lawrence move. Simon Weigang's now been replaced by Otis Lawrence at Aston Martin. So we wait to see. Looking forward to see where Simon goes, of course. I missed him on the grid this year, and we'll see if he does make a return in the very near future as I suppose the guard shifts in a way as new drivers come in, and we will wait and see. Still, Fabrizio Donoso, of course, not here with us this week as well. He's also away for this week, but we have plenty of entertainment still to come here at Spa, with plenty of drama on the horizon, and it seems like the first proper laps of Q2 will be Mr. Barry Borman, of course, a former champion of PSGL in very controversial circumstances. It couldn't have ended any other way. Barry Borman, he was, for many, many seasons, was always finishing second. It was almost like Freddie Rasmussen in F1 Esports. Barry Borman would win almost everything and still not be able to convert it to a championship. All came down to a final round tussle between himself and Thomas Ronnar. It went to the stewards' room. It ended equal on points, and Barry Borman, of course, coming out with the title, that time on countback. So he'll be looking to repeat that. He did, of course, take pole back here, all the way back in 2019. So we'll see if he's going to be able to, or 2020, sorry, as he now gets us underway here at Spa. But he loves this circuit, and he'll be looking to get a repeat of that.
He certainly will be indeed, and it is foot to the floor for this Q2 session. Barry Borman will be the first driver to set a competitive lap time. A massive lock of the wheels in towards the source, but up towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon he'll go. Full force, pretty much flat out, as Brendan Lee described in his little video we saw just before this qualifying session started. And for Barry Borman, will be looking to get up and safely through to the Q3 session. I don't think we'll see as much confidence from the drivers as we saw in Q1, the early retirements that we saw from that top 5 in the end. But I think we will definitely see this go right down to the wire. 7.5 minutes of this qualifying session left at the moment, and pretty much everyone on their competitive lap. Jarno Opmeer will join them in a mere moment's time, but Barry Borman, the first driver to do so, through the left-hander of no name and down towards Pouon for his run. The Ferrari car, who's being supported by Nicolas Longue, who's just further back on the grid at the moment, or further back on the track, should I say, coming through this Q2 session. They'll be looking potentially to work together as well, because we know how advantageous Slipstream can be when it comes to a race situation, Jack.
Certainly is, yeah, and we know how well the two Ferraris work well with each other. They're a force to be reckoned with. They'll be aiming to try and lock out that front row if they possibly can. Well, they'll be hoping to do, but I hope they're not listening to the statistics we just talked about earlier on. But Barry Borman will not be thinking about that at all as he comes through Blanchimont and down towards the bus stop chicane. His teammate Nicolas Longue just a couple of car lengths behind. You see him just coming through Blanchimont behind. Here comes Barry Borman, then into the bus stop, into the right, into the left, onto the power on the exit, and this will be the first time across the board. It's a 40.60 across the board for Barry Borman. Nicolas Longue will beat him by 300ths on a 40.57. Otis Lawrence in the Aston Martin 40.639. Thomas Ronnar 40.7 behind him. Thomas Gall will cross and beat him on a 40.69. So plenty of times still to come across the board. 41.0 for Istvan Pukki, and we have Alvaro Caraton 40.8. Josh Ito 40.70. Rasmussen does a 40.4. Huge time from Freddie Rasmussen across the line there. Josh Ito in P7 now, and Declan Barrett finds a 40.68 as he crossed the line. Berezne goes 40.65 in P5 for the moment, and two more cars left to cross the line. Was a 40.72 for Philip Brechner, but he's invalidated the time, so that is not going to be ideal for him. Jarno Opmeer, the last car to cross the line, 40.68 for Jarno Opmeer. So the cutoff time currently at 40.7, and it's Thomas Ronnar on the bubble at the moment. But what a time from Rasmussen. He should definitely be safe at a 40.4.
Yeah, very much so. He'll be looking with a little bit of glee in his eye, looking back towards the rest of the field, of course, going down all the way down to Shannon Clay, down in P14, 6/10 is what separates the field at the moment. And as you said, Freddie Rasmussen, the driver that won F1 Esports just mere months ago, will be looking with a little bit of confidence going into Q3, almost confirmed into that final qualifying session. On the flip side, Thomas Ronhaar will be sat with a little bit of worry in that cockpit. He knows he is by no means safe. He's only 0.02 of a second down from Josh Ido in P9, but the drivers that follow him, Alvaro Corraton, Istan Pookie, Duncan Hoffman, Chad Clay and Philip Presneder, will be looking to try and chase down that illustrious P10 spot and, of course, the positions that supersede it.
Yeah, so Rasmussen, I think he won't be doing another lap, you'd imagine, with almost a 10th in hand. He won't need to go again. Nicholas Longe, Barry Borman, how do they feel? Barry Borman on a 40.6, but you've got himself, Otis Lawrence, Danny Beresnay, Declan Barrett, Jarno Watmere and Thomas Gall are all on 40.6s, so even a half a tenth improvement could see a big change there. It's currently Thomas Ronhaar on the bubble on a 40.72, but we know from his previous, that's actually slower than he went in Q1, so you'd imagine he's got a ton more pace than that. He did a 40.5 in Q1, so Thomas Ronhaar, you would expect him to improve on that time. Josh Ido, 40.7, of course, as well. He's the other Alpine. I have to keep getting used to this as well. Josh Ido, Joni Tormola, who were, of course, parts of what it was AlphaTauri and RB, are now Alpine. So we're getting there eventually as we try to adjust. Thomas Gall doing well there, P8 for the Kick Sauber reserve, and Declan Barrett, great job by him, P6 at the moment on a 40.684. But you would imagine Rasmussen won't need to go again. It's up to now. Does Barry Borman go again? Does Longe go again? Does everybody need to go again apart from Rasmussen?
Yeah, that's the questions they will be asking. Of course, the engineers staying well on top with the expected times, and Nicholas Longe actually deciding to retire early from this session. So he's confident that a 140.5 will be enough to see him through to this Q3 session that will take place in about 5 minutes time. But for Q2 at the moment, 3 minutes is what's left on our timekeeper's clock. Drivers already heading straight back out, and it is actually Barry Borman, Nicholas's teammate, who is not confident in a 140.6, so maybe 300ths of a second could be all that it takes to separate some of the drivers, or maybe there's a bit of disparity in the Ferrari garage.
Yeah, I think Longe is probably correct to not come out again, but Borman, I think, he is on a 40.60, but so are about 5 other cars, and you would expect guys like Ronhaar to find maybe 0.2 of a second. He did, because he's gone slower than he did in Q1, so you have to imagine that everybody behind him has got pace to burn, so he has to go again. Longe, you would assume, will be okay, but again, we've seen him do this before. He's sort of jumped the gun and it's not paid off for him. Even Rasmussen's decided to come out again on a foot, and well, I think that'll be a case of just seeing what happens there. 40.4, you would imagine he's completely safe on that, but obviously Red Bull making the call to bring him back out again. So everybody's out on the circuit except for Nicholas Longe, who's made the call to not come back out again. So in that regard, maybe he's actually taking a big risk here.
I think he might have done. I'd be sat worried in the garage if the leader or the current leader of the session has come back out again, when the difference between the two of them is about 1.5 tenths between Freddie Rasmussen and Nicholas Longe, and deciding to stay in the garage. You get a good rest, a good recovery if you do get into that Q3 session. But as we've previously mentioned, it is already a risk because we know how fast some of these drivers can be. As you've previously mentioned, Thomas Ronhaar looking to go faster because he couldn't go faster than he did in Q1. So it is still very much up in the air. You want to get through to Q3, but maybe, according to statistics, you don't want to end up on pole position.
You definitely don't. No, Thomas Ronhaar knows all about that. He's trying to go for back-to-back pole positions here. Took it last time and is now going to be looking to try and do that again, but it hasn't paid off for him the last couple of times, so he'll be wanting to try and do that. This would be, if he takes it today, would be his 3rd pole position. So he's taken 2 he's taken 2 so far this season, so we're looking to try and add a 3rd to that and maybe try and convert it this time. But again, we still have to get to Q3 to decide that. Barry Borman, the first car to get us underway for these runs in Q2, and he's actually down in sector 1 here is Barry Borman, down by 100th of a second. So Was there a mistake maybe later in the lap that he's going to make up time? We're going to keep an eye on this. This is an important lap for Barry Bormand here and for cars behind. So we can try and gauge what's happening throughout the rest of the lap. Of course, every car is on a timed lap right now. So we will try and see that. And we do, of course, we do know the safety car is also on a timed lap as well. So we'll try and keep an eye on their time as they come through as well. They've been out for a while, lapping around for whatever reason. Barry Bormand now heading towards sector number 2. He was 100th of a second down in sector number 1. Has he made back any of that time as he comes through into the right-hander up towards the sector split? He's up by almost a 10th, TK.
He is indeed. That'll be enough to pip his teammate out for P2 at the moment. Not enough to get up and pip out Freddie Rasmussen, but we'll keep an eye on Barry Bormand here as he comes down through the left-hander down towards bus stop chicane. He's got 2 more corners to contend with in Q2 here, and this is a heavy braking zone. You have to get this right. A lap can be make or break in the final 2 corners. Rounds those nice and neatly up towards the line for Barry Bormand. Can he improve? He does. He pips out his teammate for P2. Nicholas Longay down in P3. Shanika Clay up on the bubble in P10 for himself. Drivers will now start to cross the line. Just Edo in P4 for himself. Danny Beresne up in P6. I don't think he improved. As drivers continue to cross the line, they will try and keep you up to date, as a lot of them are very dark on our minimap. It's hard to keep track. It's Van Pookie, P7. Alvaro Caraton is out in Q2. He cannot go faster. Thomas Gal, P10, pips out Shanika there. Freddie Rasmussen goes even quicker with a 1:43.90, as I think we see someone else qualify. Thomas Ronha up to P3, solidifies himself into Q3 session. Nicholas Longay is dropping down, but he is going to be safe here by my calculation. Duncan Hoffland, P9 as well. Drivers moving, but a good call there in the end from Nicholas Longay not to go out for a second time.
Yeah, and now he's got the benefit of an extra set of tyres, which could be big round here. Rasmussen then goes quicker. So Danny Beresne, he got knocked out right at the last minute there. That is, again, another championship contender goes out in the next part of qualifying. Danny Beresne gets knocked out of qualifying. So as you can see, your exits for this time: Danny Beresne, Istvan Pukki, Thomas Gall, Shanika Clay, and Alvaro Caraton, who did invalidate his time going through there. But the drivers who will be taking part in Q3: Rasmussen, Bormand, Ron Haar, Otis Lawrence, Nicholas Longay, who only did the single run, Declan Barrett, Jarno Watmere, Josh Edo, and a hat tip to Philip Preschnader and Duncan Hoffland getting through to Q3. I told you Philip Preschnader likes this circuit, and he's through to Q3.
Fantastic lap from the McLaren reservist this afternoon. Finds himself in P9, just pipping out a couple of other drivers behind him. Duncan Hoffland saved by a hair's breadth there to find himself through to the final 10 knockout, and he'll be looking, of course, to get that infamous pole position. The bonus point, I think, will weigh out the history books in terms of here in PSGL, but we wait and see what happens. We wait for that countdown to start, and we've got it nice and early. 12 minutes then on your clock. Set your watches, ladies and gentlemen, because here we go for the final 10 shootout here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, so Rasmussen going even quicker then in that part of qualifying. He managed to go into the 0.3s, so we know he's got that in him. Thomas Ronnar as well did a 0.4, so it's going to be a spicy battle. I think Rasmussen's looking good for it though at the moment, but we've seen drivers hook up laps right at the very end of qualifying. So we've got some dark horses in here. Of course, we've got plenty of drivers who could take pole position. Again, a great job by Declan Barrett through to Q3 once again here in Spa. Great job by him. Both Ferraris getting through. So that's probably an omen that the drivers didn't want to see, is both of those guys getting through to the top 10, because we know how well they work together. Duncan Hoffland and both the Aston Martins, of course, Duncan Hoffland and Otis Lawrence getting through to the part of qualifying. Philip Preschnader, it's almost hard to believe he's the highest placed McLaren. He's in at reserve, is Philip Preschnader, and he's now, of course, filling in for Lucas Blakely this week, and is doing a great job there. They'll be very happy with how he's performing. Rasmussen and Otmere, though, in Red Bull, up in here, the next part of qualifying. Josh Ito representing Alpine, his teammate, starting 20th. So it is very interesting qualifying so far. But it's anybody's guess who's going to take pole. But it's 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, and that is already a battle that we love to see.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating stuff. 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, 2 Aston Martins even as well, with Duncan Hoffland and Otis Lawrence both managing to come in. Otis could not have asked for a better debut after signing with the Aston Martin team, coming here and getting Q3. Now, all he really needs is to pip out, maybe get a race victory as well, just to pip off the perfect weekend. We saw it a couple of weeks ago with Jarno Otmir signing for Red Bull Racing Course, winning the first race out for them that afternoon. So could history repeat itself here in Spa this afternoon, albeit for a different driver and a different team? But Philip Presneda out first for the McLaren esports team. Just further behind him will be Otis Lawrence in the Aston Martin, and I think that was just a brake board being removed by Philippe Presneda. I saw some debris go flying.
Strategic from Philip Presneda, I think, just making sure that nobody else knows where to brake except him. So again, not probably frowned upon, but listen, if it happens accidentally, it happens accidentally. So Philip Presneda heading down towards Pouhon now. And of course, when he did win here back in the first season, he of course was driving for Ferrari at the time. So he's gone through some different teams in the meantime. Alpine, of course, in as well, and is now sort of in between at the moment. So Philip Presneda now reserving at McLaren for this week, and he'll be trying to replicate his success from almost 4 years ago. It's hard to believe that it's almost 4 years ago since we last saw Philip Presneda up towards the top of the order. Of course, was a championship contender at the time between himself, Barry Borman, and Jarno Otmir. Back when Barry Borman and Jarno Otmir were teammates, of course, at Alfa Romeo before he moved to Mercedes at the time. So we've gone through many iterations here at PSGL, and we're trying to keep up with everything. But Philip Presneda, the first car to get us underway for Q3 here. So it'll be an indication who's unused, who's on new. We'll know by the end of their laps, but up until now, we're sort of guessing.
Yeah, we certainly are indeed. The only driver we're fairly confident about will be Nicholas Longley, of course. Choosing not to do that second lap in Q2 gives him the extra set of tyres to be able to use them. Potentially we'll be using them in the first runs just to get a good banker lap. Maybe play a little bit of a mental game for the rest of our drivers. If they have that really high targets to try and achieve, it might force them to overdrive the car and even cause a few mistakes or two. And it is, of course, purple sector 1 for Philip Presneda, but take that with a pinch of salt until laps have started to fly in. And that's when that really comes into its own. Further behind will be Otis Lawrence, P8 on your timing screens at the moment. He's just making his way through the very few corners, but Philippe, through no name he goes, just managing to keep it within legal limits there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a scary moment. Presneda is pushing on here a bit. Compared to Otis Lawrence, his first sector was really good. I was a 30.5. Otis Lawrence was a 30.7 in the first sector. But that you would have lost some time on the exit of no name there. Really pushing the limits right here as he comes through towards the next split. Into the right-hander he goes now, and it will cross the split time, and now has invalidated the lap just on the exit there, just dipped a wheel into the gravel, and he'll have to have another go. But that lap was shaping up to be very good for Philip Presneda, but Otis Lawrence finds some time in that middle sector now as he comes through in the Aston Martin. At least he's coloured his car like an Aston Martin to help us out here, is young Otis Lawrence, as he comes up towards Blanchimont corner. We'll get an indication of where the pace is at for the young Welshman, up towards the bus stop chicane now. In his green Aston Martin machine, turns into the right, looks neat and tidy on that as he came into the entry of it. Onto the power he goes now. What's it going to be for Otis Lawrence? 40.26, the fastest time so far for Otis Lawrence. That's definitely a set of new tyres he's got on there. I did think that bus stop looked really neat and tidy, but he's set the benchmark. How about that?
He has indeed. The gauntlet has been well and truly laid down here in this Q3 session. Into bus stop is Josh Ido in the Alpine, up towards the line. A little bit of a kick out there for himself as he goes P2, 140.8 for himself. Next across the line, I think, will be, I'm trying to keep up, I think it was Declan Barrett, and it was indeed potentially invalidated his lap. It didn't count either way. Duncan Hoffland could only do a 141.3 on his opening return. Freddie Rasmussen in P2 with a 140.3, so times starting to come thick and fast. But as you said, Otis Lawrence, the young Welshman, currently at the top of the standings.
Yeah, everyone else looks a bit ragged. Thomas Ronnar, 40.3, can't get close. Otmir crosses the line now, 40.8. So those will be used tyre runs, we would imagine, for them. But Otis Lawrence, hell of a lap to get us underway here in Q3. And he beats Thomas Ronnar by a couple of hundredths, not much in it. But Thomas Ronnar beats out Freddie Rasmussen for the moment, and that's only 3,000 slower than Rasmussen managed in the last part of qualifying. So still a bit of time on the board, you would imagine, for a couple of these guys. Josh Ido, Jarno Otmir, and a couple of those. Philip Presneda, we know, of course, invalidated his previous time. So anybody's guess as to who's going to take pole here, but Otis Lawrence, he's put the benchmark down. And it was a very tidy lap from Otis Lawrence, but I think he'll know, even in sector number 1, he does have a bit more time there, but could potentially be running a bit more wing compared to others. Might have lost that time just in the setup, but of course he's paid for it in sector 2 and sector 3. So could we see an Otis Lawrence pole position, or could we see Thomas Ronner get his 3rd of the year?
Well, we'll wait and see. We'll know in roughly 5 minutes' time what is going to be happening and how our grid will stand for the Belgian Grand Prix here in PSGL Season 37. Question I'm asking, though, here, Jack, nice and early on. Nicholas Longuet, was that used tyres, or was that new tyres, or is that just maybe not quite the lap that he would have expected to put together?
It's hard to know, really. I would imagine it's going to be new because he had that extra set to work with, but unless maybe just didn't hook the lap up there, 40.5. We know himself and his teammate are super close on pace, so you'd imagine it just wasn't quite there for Nicholas Longuet, but he's going to go for it now. Has a delta to work with now, so that may help his cause, as will Josh Ito. And, of course, Duncan Hofland. Philip Preschner doesn't have a delta to work with or anything like that, but we will see who is going to take pole. It's time to lock in your predictions. I've got absolutely no idea. I've been wrong every single week, so I don't know who's going to take pole position here. But Otis Lawrence looking good with a 10th and a bit of a gap. But is anybody going to pull a lap out here? But it's time to lock your predictions in chat. Do let us know who's taking pole position, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with everything on PSGL here as we enter the most important phase of the day. Is the pole position shootout in Q3. We've got some shouts for Otis and some shouts there for Otis. It seems to be Otis seems to be the favourite for the moment, but you would imagine that there's going to be some rapid times being set here, but they've all got to aim for the young Welshman.
They do indeed. And interestingly enough, we mentioned the possibility of rain at the start of this session. We said it looks rather overcast here in the hills of Belgium. So far, it stayed rather dry, but it is still looking very, very cloudy indeed. I'm not sure if there's any threat of rain on the horizon. I doubt it if drivers aren't going out or haven't gone out as early, put quick lap times in yet. We are still expecting some improvements from drivers, but there's a few calls as well for Barry for pole, a lot of calls for Otis Lawrence here on essentially his debut for Aston Martin.
It is, yeah. We love to have that the debuts for their new teams. We've got Joni Tormala debuting for Alpine. We've got Otis essentially debuting for Aston Martin today, and it's great to see him up towards the top. Nicholas Longuet, the first car out onto the circuit in his Ferrari as he heads up the Eau Rouge and Radion section and will get us underway for Q3 in just a few moments' time. Josh Ito just weaving behind him, getting tyre temperature in. More calls coming in for Thomas Ronhaar for pole position. Got Barry for pole here from a couple of others as well. So it's essentially anybody in the top 10 could get pole here. Because we haven't seen times from Declan Barrett. We haven't seen times from Philip Preschner. Who knows what they've got in the tank. But every car is out on the circuit right now. We are going to have plenty to keep our eyes on. So there's lots of work for us to do here in the commentary box, and it doesn't help that we haven't got the real cars to keep our eyes on either.
It does, especially when you're trying to figure out who's in what car. There's a lot of dots on the minimap that look very similar colours. So we'll do our best to try and keep you up to date with who's where. But for now, we know it is Nicholas Longuet heading out first. Josh Ito is second on the grid, and then of course, Freddie Rasmussen, who's changing the conventions ever so slightly, gone with the brown car, but it does make it rather easy for us to spot him in amongst the crowd. Will be third to start their lap time at the moment. It looks like Thomas Ronhaar is going to leave it till a last gasp hurrah for himself alongside Duncan Hofland, who are rather backing up from the majority of the pack, wanting potentially a little bit of free air, potentially at that last run where the track has all of the evolution that it possibly can do. But here we go then, lock in for the final runs of Q3 here. It's Nicholas Longuet that will lead us on to the final timed laps as he heads down towards La Source.
There's nothing better than a light car on low fuel on soft tyres at Spa. It's the standard Thomas Ronhaar move as well. He always likes to be the last car to set a lap time. Never comes out first always comes out last as he heads up towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Nicolas Longue trying to get himself up towards the front row of the grid on a 40.5 he's on right now. Up the hill to down the Kemmel Straight as he climbs towards the chicane. How is that first sector looking for him? Down by 100th in towards sector 1, but it seems like the Ferrari is better in this middle sector. Onto the power, he goes a little bit out of shape as he exits it down towards the Brussels hairpin now. Keeping our eyes elsewhere as well on who's on what lap. Josh Ito is the next car behind him. So there's plenty to keep our eyes on. Declan Barrett going through sector 1 now as well. The last car to cross the line will be Thomas Ronner. Otis Lawrence, I can tell you, is down on his best time in sector 1. He's down by 300ths of a second. But Nicolas Longue, we know the Ferrari's strong through here, TK.
We do indeed. Let's keep an eye on him as he heads down towards that sector 2 split. This will be the true telltale sign of where he's going in this final Q3 run up towards the line. He is improving by 900ths of a second. Sector 3 here of Q3 will be absolutely crucial. It's not enough at the moment to take pole position, but I wonder if time can be made or lost for himself on the long run down towards the bus stop chicane just behind him, as you mentioned, Josh Ito. So keep an eye, ladies and gentlemen. 2 more corners for our drivers to contend with. Nicolas Longue, can he put it on pole position on the final run for himself up towards the line? It's only good enough for P4. Josh Ito in P6 at the moment. P5 for himself. Freddie Rasmussen, the F1 the F1 sim racing champion from last time out. What can he do here in Belgium? DRS wing open up towards the line. It is the fastest time, a 1:42.24. Can anyone pip it out? Declan Barrett, P7, is all that he's got in his tank. Further behind, it will be Otis Lawrence, who can't go quicker. He will have to settle for P2. Ferrari across the line. Barry Borremont, P3 for himself. 1:42.76. Up across the line, Duncan Hoffland could not improve. Thomas Ronhar could spoil the party, but he's invalidated his lap. So Freddie Rasmussen, at the final time of asking, will take pole position here.
Wow, great lap from the Dane. Freddie Rasmussen takes pole. Ronnar invalidates the time coming through the final sector. And it's Rasmussen on pole from Otis Lawrence and Barry Borman, your top 3 here in Spa. Ronnar lines up 4th. Longue could only manage 5th. Josh Ito starts 6th. Championship leader Jan Watmere starts 7th. And he'll share a row with Philip Preschnader, who starts P8. And then it's Declan Barrett and Duncan Hoffland, 9th and 10th. Now, for once, we keep going on about the pole position statistics. Nobody has won from pole position so far this season, and maybe now Thomas Ronnar starting 4th. Maybe that invalidation was on purpose. Maybe he was listening to us.
Maybe he was indeed. We'll switch back to our lovely faces. There we go. Back in the commentary box for all of you guys. Freddie Rasmussen, of course, could be the one to break the curse here in season 37. 22 laps of racing to come in just a few moments' time. Of course, Lobby doing its due diligence, having their reset, getting the ghosting turned back off for our drivers. So Slipstream will be in effect heading in just a few moments' time. But before we head into that, before we get on with everything else, let's just have a little word from our sponsors at GT Omega. Well, always great to hear from our partners over at GT Omega. Of course, you can check them out with a little discount code PSGL. Will get you 5% off all of their products there at their checkout. A fantastic little discount that they offer. And now we just wait for our drivers to get themselves prepped and ready to head into this race. 22 laps here, Jack. And I think we'll see a lot of DRS chicken, a lot of VRS management, and potentially some crazy strategies as well.
I think so. We were talking about this a day earlier with that the softs apparently only last about 3 laps around here. So I don't know if anybody's going to go for that, but I would like to see it. With some mixed up strategies. The soft tires will work very, very well early on, but of course they're going to drop off very quickly. But do you use that to your advantage? Do you try and get a gap and then try and do something outrageous strategy wise to try and get yourself back into the fray? But there's plenty to talk about there. Rasmussen on pole, Otis Lawrence in P2. Do you want to start on pole? Obviously, we talk about the statistic of course, but do you want to start first at Spa? Because of course you've got the La Source hairpin, but you've also got that long run down the Kemmel Straight. We know how effective Slipstream is down the Kemmel Straight. So are you even going to be where are you going to be at the end of lap 1? Are you still going to be the leader? Or are you going to be down in 5th?
Exactly. And of course, DRS now activating after just one lap of racing. So you have that double-edged sword effectively for a lot of our drivers. Not only is a slipstream being a really big factor coming into this race, you'll have the DRS assistance once they finish lap 1, heading on to lap 2. That detection zone heading out of La Source will be the first time that gets activated in the race. And it's going to be fascinating. I reckon we'll see closer than ever moves through P1 and through the final few corners as well. We know how close drivers can race through the corners in this year's game, and I think a lot of them will use it to their advantage as well.
It certainly will. Yeah, there'll be lots to lots to keep our eyes on throughout this race. We haven't ruled out the chance of rain either. Of course, rain has really mixed things up this season. Especially we talk about Silverstone. We come back to that all the time with that crazy race that started with mixed. Full wet / intermediate. Nobody really knew what was the right call. So we're keeping our eyes on everything. If there is rain, it will certainly cause a lot of problems around Spa. Always does. But we have seen it in the past and it has produced some brilliant, brilliant races. But it's a great opportunity now for Jarno Opmeer to try and extend championship lead. He's starting 7th in this race, of course. Danny Beresnay is starting down, I think, in about 12th, who's his nearest rival, which is he's P5 in the championship. His next closest rival, who's P3 in the championship, only 6 points behind him, is Tom Manley, who has to start from 17th.
He does indeed, and it's going to be fascinating who manages to come out of that in a better shape than others, especially when it comes to our championship picture. And we'll go quickly, just a reminder of how our standings look and see what our drivers are doing. So, of course, as we mentioned earlier, it's Jarno Opmeer who tops out the standings. Brendan Lee in P2 for himself. And Tom Manley just pipping out in P3. Fantastic stuff for the V-Carb driver. Lucas Blakely, of course, not here this week in P4 in the McLaren, being replaced by Philippe Presneda. And Daddy Beresnay 5, Duncan Hoffman 6th, Declan Barrett P7, and of course it's Van Pookie, the reserve, being the highest rated reserve at the moment, up in P8. So anything can literally happen in this race. Jack, who's going to be the biggest contender? I mean, there's drivers at the bottom of the grid. Josh Edo potentially down in P15, who could really benefit from a good race here in Belgium.
Yeah, you've got guys like, especially Rasmussen down in 12th. He's starting on pole today, of course. Thomas Ronnar has only scored 6 points this season. Lucas Longue on 5. So there is a lot of guys who can gain out of today. Declan Barrett as well. It's not ruling him out. He's starting at 9th for this race, and he's 7th in the championship behind Duncan Hoffland, who's also up there in the top 10 today. But there's plenty of opportunities for guys lower down. You wouldn't expect to see guys like Rasmussen, Ronnar, Longue so far down the order, but it's the way it's gone. Jake Benham as well. He's outside. He's also down in about 18th at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do to go from there. So it's an interesting one to keep our eyes on. That we will say. I did see a comment in chat and I did find it hilarious, and this is the way it's gone, that every stream I look whiter and whiter. I'm going to reveal to you, I was in Spain for the past week and it's done absolutely nothing.
I haven't been abroad, so I'm somehow I keep rather tanned, especially when it comes to being in warm rooms like this with PCs that kick out stupid amounts of heat. So apologies for looking a little bit flushed on your screens at the moment, but I'm sure everyone won't mind at home. We're not too far away, of course, from getting going in Belgium. Get your predictions in chat. Who you think is going to win? Who you think might cause a little bit of an upset here this afternoon? I think Jarno Opmeer is on a bit of a path to try and chase down that extension of his championship lead, and it is certainly game and set in the hands of Opmeer.
Certainly is. Now, remember, of course, we use a slightly different point system here at PSGL, of course. It's again, but it brings everything closer, of course. 18 points for a victory here as well. And we do have the bonus point for pole position as well. So Freddie Rasmussen would have taken that for today. So congratulations to him. He's already scored 1 point, and we haven't even started the race yet. Istvan Pukki is, of course, our loyal host for this evening, and he's just done the job of setting the grid for this evening. He has to do that manually. Countdown is on right now. 20 seconds left in the lobby, so it's time now to lock in your predictions. Who's taking the win here at Spa? And remember, bring back the statistic, nobody has won from pole this season, and nobody who started on pole has even got on the podium. So keep that in your prediction mind.
Yeah, keep that in the back of your head. This is going to be a fascinating 22 laps of racing. It could go anybody's way. I made a little bit of an early prediction earlier on that Brendan Lee could take his maiden race victory, and then I remembered that he's not racing. So it won't be him that gets his race win. Neither will Danny Beresnay could take it. Of course, the only driver alongside Brendan Lee in the top 6 that hasn't yet got a race win in this season. And I think everyone's a little bit shuffled, potentially a little bit out of position too.
I think so. Yeah, it's slightly mixed up, so that could give us an opportunity to try and go for our 5th different race winner this season. So, which is again an incredible statistic, but we will try and see if that can be possible. We're not sure if it will be. Could we see the first repeat winner of the season? We'll wait and see if that comes to fruition as well. We're waiting to see as they now count down towards the start of the race. It looks, the weather's looking very nice. I can tell you around Spa, which of course guys like Freddie Rasmussen and all them will be hoping that it stays that way. I'm going to be very interested, of course, in the tyre strategies. Does anybody try something outlandish and go for softs or something like that to try and mix things up? We do love it when drivers do that here in PSGL. But it's Otis Lawrence and Freddie Rasmussen, your front row. And we will see how they get on towards turn number 1. Rasmussen, of course, the reigning F1 sim racing champion, trying to get a victory on the board. Of course, he's of course has not taken a victory at all this season, has only scored 5 or 6 points so far this season. So it could be a big opportunity for him.
It could be indeed. There is lots on the table here. We know how chaotic it can be around Spa here in F1 24. The lights are lit above our drivers though. We get ready to go racing. We've got 5 lights on and we go racing for PSGL F1. Freddie Rasmussen with a fantastic pull away. Otis Lawrence will have to play second fiddle for now. There's a move down the inside by Jarno Ottmir trying to get squeezed into turn number 1. Through the source they go, but Thomas Ronhaar up to P3 for himself. Barry Borremund will have to settle for P4 at the moment. Moves being made further back with Tom Manley up to P15. Jake Benham up to P18 as well as we crest over the top of Radion down towards the Kemmel Straight. This is a move for Barry Borremund in the slipstream of Thomas Ronhaar. He moves to the inside line down towards the chicane. Can he get the move done on the braking zone? Yes, he can, Barry Borremund. Or can he though? As Thomas Ronhaar pushed out wide, they'll have to settle wheel to wheel through the right hander, but Thomas Ronhaar just holding on here.
Yeah, brilliant race between Borremund and Ronhaar through there as Nicholas Longue chucks it up the inside of Josh Ito. A little bit of contact behind, down towards No Name. Conker around the outside. He's going to get shuffled wide into the gravel. Longue goes wide into the gravel, drops nearly 4 positions just off that move. Wasn't going to work around the outside there. Now he's down in 10th and a lot more work to do. Now 2 cars off in the background. Pouon, almost a big accident. They managed to come through without too much contact there, and they all try and settle into line. Perfect start for Freddie Rasmussen. Led out of turn 1, Otis Lawrence 2nd, Ronhaar 3rd, Borremund in 4th. Fantastic bit of side-by-side up towards the end of the Kemmel Straight there. Josh Ito P5 now, and Philip Preschner already. Istvan Pukki, a 10-second penalty for corner cutting already in this race. Jarno Ottmir P7, Declan Barrett 8th, Duncan Hoffman 9th, and Nicholas Longue after that instant now in P10. But the perfect getaway for Freddie Rasmussen. What I can say is the drivers have been very boring in their strategies. Only 3 cars have opted for a different tyre. Jake Benham, Lenny Pepinter and Shannon Clay are on the mediums. Everybody else is on the hard compound tyre.
Yeah, they are indeed. Of course, that penalty as well going the way of Istvan Pukki. We'll see him serve that at the mandatory pit stop later on. Danny Beresnay looking for a move into La Source, as is Philippe Preschner up for P5. Danny Beresnay side by side with Nicholas Longue, of course, having that off into the gravel further round in lap number 1. But Danny Beresnay, I think, will have the lead as they head into Eau Rouge and Rally on up the hill they climb. Lap 2 of 22, we go down the Kemmel Straight for the second time. DRS will be activated. Let's go ahead and look at the top end of this race. Freddie Rasmussen Rasmussen could be a bit of a sitting duck here. Otis Lawrence, Thomas Ronhar, both of them with that drag reduction system being activated, but it could be a game of patience for a lot of our other drivers. Jarno Otmir setting a purple sector 1 for the Red Bull Racing team. Shannon Clay and Wilson Hughes battling out for P17 and P18 further back. But at the moment, Freddie Rasmussen in a controlling pace at the moment. Pole position could have paid off for himself.
Yeah, he absolutely nailed the getaway. Got a perfect launch and managed to stay in front of Otis Lawrence that time. And he's now trying to keep them behind. Thomas Ronhar in P3 fought off the charge of Barry Borman. Was always having flashbacks to the title fight those two had. It was wonderful bit of side-by-side into the chicane. Great move by Ronhar to keep it in round the outside. Borman was fair, left him the room on the exit. Ronhar repaid the favour on the next corner. It was great stuff between them all. I tell you what, Philip Preschneider, great job from him. P5 he's up to and is looking racy in that McLaren behind. So he's making good moves. Made the move on Josh Ito and is now happy to stay behind where he is. Jake Benham up to 12th place now. He's trying to make some moves on the medium tyres and is now trying to get by Nicholas Longa, who's dropping like a stone through the order. Benham moves in front of him now. P11 for Jake Benham here in his Mercedes, and he's also the biggest mover. He's up 7 places from where he started, TK.
Yeah, fantastic drive so far for Jake Benham. Nicholas Longa, as you said, dropping positions hand over fist. I'm trying to see if there's any damage on his car, but from observation, it doesn't seem so. There's no front wing damage in a minimum anyway, so he'll have to try and reassess, see what is going wrong inside the cockpit, and go again. But for the lead of the race, Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronhar are this much closer this time around. It could almost be 3 wide into the chicane. Both of the drivers back out though, allowed Freddie Rasmussen to hold back on, but Jarno Otmir is up 1 position. He's got past his old teammate up to P6 and he's picked him off, and now we'll try and challenge Philippe Preschneider for P5.
Yeah, that was a perfect demonstration of DRS chicken. I mean, he had the opportunity to go for it, decided not to, and is way happier to stay behind Freddie Rasmussen and let him punch a hole in the air for him as they come down the Kemmel Straight. So great job by them. Otmir moving in front of Josh Ito. That time he decided to make the move. Philip Preschneider now the next car in front of him. If he wants to make the move, he can. The move going on further back. Declan Barrett not hanging around, sticks it up the inside of the chicane. A little bit of contact made there. Had to catch the car on the way through. A little bit of side pot to tyre, and he does manage to come out unscathed. Just an unfortunate bit of contact there, but he carries on just about. But he's going to need to reassess after that and try again. 7 tenths the gap between Barry Borman and Thomas Ronhar, so he's going to have to try and stick in that slipstream, but he will get dragged up. It's very powerful. Jake Benham, another move made by him, up to P10 for Jake Benham in front of his teammate Danny Beresnay, and now he's got Duncan Houghlin in front of him, who's trying to get in front of Declan Barrett up the inside of the bus stop chicane. Houghlin side by side with Declan Barrett, doesn't get the traction, will have to stay behind for now. Does he try it into La Source now on the brakes, thinks about it, has a half look up the inside, does he get it stopped? Just about. Not going to have enough. He's going to have to stay behind for now as we have some moves being made further back, but as you can see up front, they are starting to close together now. Does anybody make a move? Does anybody want to lead this race?
I don't think anyone does. Thomas Ronhar, of course, in E-Series back last Friday, had poor memories of leading the Belgian Grand Prix. It's for Otis Lawrence that is going to take it off the hands of Freddie Rasmussen, though, with the assist of that drag reduction system. Thomas Ronhar quite happy to sit down in P3, wait for the front two to drag him through that dirty air, but Barry Bormans is right on the back of these guys, as is Philippe Preschneider, and the rest of the field starting to regain what gap they had originally pulled as they continue on to lap 4 of 22 here. Thomas Ronhar, of course, taking the race lead through onto the Kemmel Straight on lap 22 of 22 in E-Series, and then losing it in the final corner to one Jarno Otmir. Could we see a repeat of that, or has Thomas Ronhar had a discussion with his engineer and decided this is the time where I'm going to sit behind, wait for my opportunity, and wait for my bus stop to come around?
Certainly looks like it, but he's happy to sit behind. I don't think Freddie Rasmussen will be too displeased either. It gives him a chance to try and recharge a bit of battery charge and sit in the slipstream for a while. We know how experienced he is, of course, trying to get a win on the board this season and try to get some more, get his first podium of the season. Freddie Rasmussen, as he comes through a little bit, it's getting close behind now. I feel like Jarno Otmir might be lining up Philip Preschneider here. Outside line for him into the bus stop. Preschneider doesn't fight it, so Jarno now up into P5. So do you want to be Otis Lawrence right now? Look at the names he's got behind him. Rasmussen, Ronhar, Borman and Otmir are all following the Otis Lawrence train.
Yep, if you talk about debuts, this is going to be one for the history books if he carries it on. If he can keep in the lead of this race going forward, but I have a strong, sneaky suspicion that he's not going to be able to maintain it as we continue through this Grand Prix. It's a long race here at Spa, let alone it's only 22 laps. And of course, the longest circuit on the F1 calendar. Thomas Ronhaar is now looking for a move on Freddie Rasmussen up to P2. Is he going to go for the double move? He is indeed into the lead of the race. Thomas Ronhaar, with that drag reduction system assistance, will overtake not only Freddie Rasmussen, but Otis Lawrence as well. And now the way is with the Kick Sauber.
Yeah, he saw the overspeed was incredible there. That's a perfect demonstration of the power of the DRS and slipstream. Almost easy, made it look like they were stopped on the circuit there. Thomas Ronhaar making the double move, and now he leads the Belgian Grand Prix. Boorman's actually managed to drag himself a bit closer now due to all that. But there'll be a lot of this. It's almost like cycling. There's going to be a lot of changing around at the front. Some guys will lead for a lap, then they'll swap around and all that kind of thing. So this isn't unusual, but it does build up the statistics of who's led a race before. So Ronhaar now leads the race. Otis Lawrence second, Rasmussen third. He started on pole. Barry Boorman fourth, and Jarno Wotmere now in P5 with Preschneider in P6. So there's still plenty to come in this race as they come up towards the bus stop chicane again, and there'll be a lot of swapping around. The Haars will go quite long into this race, so don't expect any pit stops. Well, maybe somebody might try something a little bit outlandish, try and get out of this train, but everybody is still within DRS of each other. That's 20 cars are still in DRS of each other at this point in time. As we cross the line to begin lap number 6, Thomas Ronhaar will lead us across the line. He's actually now the only car on the circuit without any DRS.
Yep, he is indeed. Fascinating statistics there that everyone down to Wilson Hughes is close enough to the car in front of them to have the ability to open that rear wing, gain a few extra miles an hour, especially as we head down the Kemmel Straight up the top. Eau Rouge and Radion, we crest lap 6 of 22. And now Thomas Ronhaar punching through that dirty air will allow Otis Lawrence to go for a move. I think Freddie Rasmussen is wanting one as well. Otis Lawrence takes the lead of the race, but for how long? But Freddie Rasmussen will just sit in behind for the time being. He does not want to leave this race at the moment. He's happy sitting in P2, and Otis Lawrence retaking the lead of the race here. Fantastic stuff from the Aston Martin driver Lenny Pepinter, getting past Istvan Pukic for P16 as Alvaro Carreton gets a 3-second penalty for track limit violations. So for the Williams car further back, that could be a bit of dismay.
It is, yeah. Josh Ito's also got a penalty as well, so there's a couple across the board. But you could see Rasmussen could have gone for the overtake on Otis Lawrence, but opted not to, as decided that he's led enough laps already and is happy to sit behind Wilson Hughes, the next car to pick up a 3-second time penalty for track extending. So Otis Lawrence back to the front of the order in the Aston Martin. Rasmussen second in the Red Bull. Thomas Ronhaar in the Kick Sauber is third. Ferrari sitting in P4. And then with Barry Bourne and Jarno Wotmere in the Red Bull is P5. Philip Preschneider reserving at McLaren is 6th. Josh Ito in the Alpine 7th. Duncan Hoffman in the second Aston Martin is 8th. Declan Barrett then in 9th. Danny Beresnight in the Mercedes is P10 at the moment. That's the idea of the teams. If you're unfamiliar with these, we're of course having to work our brains to remember who's in what car and who's in what team as they all shift around. Lap 7 of 22, and you can imagine, I'd imagine there's probably going to be a different leader every time we cross the line. Next time, Ronhaar gets all out of shape into turn 1. Huge save from the Dutchman there.
Yeah, Wilson Hughes retired in the pit lane, so one McLaren down already. We're not even a third of the way through this Grand Prix, and Wilson Hughes decided with that penalty to his name, he does not want to take any further part in this session. Otis Lawrence will have the lead of the race as we head down the Kemmel Straight, but for how long will be the question. Thomas Ronhaar moves to the inside, as does Freddie Rasmussen. Thomas Ronhaar up 2 positions once again. We saw it a couple of laps ago. The Kick Sauber deciding his time is now to lead the Grand Prix once again. Freddie Rasmussen will slot into P2. Otis Lawrence in P3. Fantastic stuff from those drivers. Thomas Ronhaar, of course, his best finish in this season so far, only P6, and now he finds himself battling not only for the podium positions, but for the lead of the Grand Prix.
Course, yeah. Now remember, top 10 are all on the same strategy. They're all on the hard compound tires. Only 3 cars are on an alternate strategy. Jake Benham, Shanaka Clay and Lenny Pepinter, they're on the medium tires, but everybody else is on the hard compound tires. So there's no real changes up towards the front of the order. So Thomas Ronhaar now at the front. Rasmussen doing the same thing again, deciding not to lead the race, opts to back away and sits in second place for now, and is happy to stay where he is. And still everybody everybody was in DRS, but now Tom Manley has dropped outside of that, 1.1 seconds away from Nicholas Longue in front of him, so he's got a bit of work to do. Tom Manley is trying to get himself back into the points, of course. He started down the order in 17th, he's now 13th, as we now cross the start-finish line for lap number 8. Ronar leads this time around. It's Rasmussen and Lawrence, Boerman, Opmeer and Preschneider, your top 5 as we head onto this next lap around Spa. There's going to be lots of chopping and changing as they come down the straight. You can expect 3 wide every time we go across the line here, but it's a question of who decides to go for it. Boerman's not made any moves yet at all. He's in P4, a little bit of a break starting to form between himself and Jarno Opmeer. Preschneider running Jarno Opmeer quite close behind now as they come up the Kemmel straight once again. Rasmussen happy to sit where he is. Boerman decides he wants a piece of the action now. He's going to get boxed in though. Nowhere to go for him. Side by side between Rasmussen and Ronar. Through the chicane they go. Rasmussen around the outside. Lovely move from the Dane right there. And they settle back into position. Rasmussen leads the race once again. But Boerman now trying to go around the outside of the Brussels hairpin. Not going to run out of space there and has to sit exactly where he was. But that was almost... He nearly had too much speed there, Barry Boerman. Nowhere to go. Got boxed in and remains where he is.
Yeah, it was an interesting attempt there as they exited out the Kemmel straight. He got boxed in as they headed into the chicane. They went like Noah's Ark and went 2 by 2, and it was never going to end well if they continued like that. And now settling back into their single file formation. Freddie Rasmussen taking the lead in the race, but Barry Boerman does not look too happy being sat where he originally started. He's in P4 at the moment. He wanted to be in those podium positions as they headed through this lap, and I wonder if he'll go for a very similar thing next time around, or even slightly beforehand as we get the slipstream effect down towards the bus stop chicane to finish off lap 8 of 21. 1/3 of the way through this race we go, and I think it's going to be Jarno Opmeer that's not standing on ceremony. He goes round the outside of Barry Boerman into the bus stop chicane. He's round the outside into the final corner. He has the inside line. Jarno Opmeer with a beautiful overtake up to P4, but can he hold it as they head in towards La Source? The DRS assisting him into the braking zone, but Barry Boerman dives down the inside. There's contact between the two of them, but Jarno Opmeer just holding on as Duncan Hofland further back gets passed by both Philippe Preschneider and Josh Ido as well.
Yeah, big move from Jarno Opmeer through Blanchimont. Didn't want to hang around behind Barry Boerman. So now another place gain for the Dutchman. Ronar now going to swap places with Rasmussen back in the lead once again. So no real surprises there. So it's Ronar back to the lead of the race. And it is Barry Boerman dropping behind Jarno Opmeer now as they with a good fight back. He almost managed to get the position back on the exit, but couldn't quite do it. So Jarno moves to 4th, now chasing after Otis Lawrence in front of him. And there's still plenty to come in this race with lap 9 of 22 as they now file their way down towards Pouan once again. What does Jarno do in this situation? It's probably an unusual place to go for the overtake on the exit of Blanchimont, but had the overspeed, decided to go for it, and it did work out for him in the end. But Boerman fought back as much as he could, but wasn't able to do much about it, and is now sitting in P5. Philip Preschneider doing a great job in P6 at the moment, just behind him, and then it's Josh Ido, Duncan Hofland, Declan Barrett and Danny Beresnay, your top 10 here in this race. They're all on the same tyre. They're all on the hard compound tyre. So it's going to be a case of who blinks first in this battle of tyres later on in this race as they file down towards Blanchimont once again. Lap 10 of 22 coming up right now. And we're having a new leader every single lap.
We are indeed. We're not far from the halfway point of this race either, so that could be the interchange moment between the mediums and the harder tyre. We'll wait to see if anyone dives into the pit lane, but we're not expecting it this lap nor next lap at the moment. Thomas Ronha takes us across the line for lap 10 of 22. Freddie Rasmussen, Otis Lawrence, Jarno Opmeer slotting in behind at the moment, and we could have seen a move by Barry Boerman there, down in towards the source. He thought about it for about half a second, but the Ferrari just backing out time and time again. He doesn't want to get caught up in instance. He knows this is an opportunity to be able to use it and basically get some good free positions up, but it's never going to be easy to overtake Jarno Opmeer, of course, famously champion in PSGL time and time again, and it looked like Philippe Preschneider was going to go for it for half a moment, but Thomas Ronha holding on to the lead of the race here, which is something we haven't seen in a while. Someone holding on at the end of the Kemmel straight.
Yeah, I think it's one of the first laps that nobody has decided to go for an overtake, except Duncan Hofland's decided to try it at the Brussels hairpin down the inside of Josh Ido. Huge moment for Josh Ido. Big save from the Welshman on the exit. Snap of oversteer, and Duncan Hofland slots through. Up to P7 he goes right now, but certainly some new overalls that we needed for Josh Ido there. Huge moment for him, but he hangs on to the car just about. He might lose a place to Declan Barrett, not quite, manages to hang on. But there's still more to come there. Duncan Hofland moves in front now into P7 for the Dutchman in the other Aston Martin as they come round to finish another lap The only change of position was between those two in the top 10 at the very least. So lap 10 of 22. Rasmussen getting very close to Ronar, up towards Blanchimont, but again, not lining up an overtake at all. This is all, of course, this is all a game of chicken, really. They're going to swap places. There's not going to be really any fight put up by some guys. As we get closer to the pit stop phase, it may get a bit worse for where as there's a big contact behind between Josh Ito, Duncan Hoffman and Philip Preschner to the final chicane. I don't think they're very happy with each other as they come down towards the first corner. Josh Ito might have looked for it there, and again, maybe not room. Philip Preschner was almost an innocent victim in all that, almost got caught up in it, but they come out just about in one shape in that part of the lap. So lap 11 to 22 then, half distance, and still nobody, no real surprises up towards the front, but no real surprises in terms of weather, no real surprises in terms of strategy. Nothing really going on in this race.
No, not at the moment. Everyone's kind of standing on ceremony a little bit. No change for the lead of the race either. Thomas Ronar managing to hold on to that. We jump back, just have a look as Declan Barrett and Josh Ito get caught up in a battle between themselves. They are going to allow Declan Barrett up to P9. Of course, Danny Perejne as well up to P8 for the Mercedes team. So holding on there. Fantastic move. Duncan Hoffman holding on to P7, and this could allow Philippe Prejenader just have a bit of breathing room to the cars behind him. He'll try and mount a move on Barry Burmont for P5, but the leaders of this race at the moment, of course, all on hard tyres, all crossing this half-race distance. It'll be fascinating to see who blinks first, who goes for the undercut, and will everybody follow them into the pit course with the randomly assigned pit allocations. The risk and the reward could be insane.
Certainly could be. We're expecting the medium tyres now to be coming into the pits very, very soon. Jake Benham has moved up to P11 through that stint, so we'll see how that's going to work out for him later on. He's going to swap onto, you'd imagine, a set of the hard tyres for the end of this race. So now we're waiting to see what's going to happen up front, but nothing really surprising happening. Nobody's made a move to the lead in recent laps. Ronar's led a couple of them now. It's Rasmussen behind, Otis Lawrence in third, Jarno Watmere fourth, Barry Bourmand in fifth. So no real changes there. There's a bit of swapping for a couple of laps there, but nobody opting to go for it on that time around. We'll see if there's going to be any swaps this time. Does Rasmussen fancy leading a lap for maybe even just for a little while as he comes up through Eau Rouge and Radion? There's going to be any changes here, or does Otis Lawrence fancy to lead for a little while? Preschner lining up Barry Bourman behind. He's getting close. Yes, Rasmussen is fancying it. We're going to make it 3 wide. Why not? So Otis Lawrence slots by the both of them. He moves to lead now, and he'll take his turn at the front of the pack here. And it's almost amazing how easy the overtakes are, 3 abreast each time. And in normal races, we'd think that was crazy, but it's happened every single lap so far.
It certainly has indeed. The front three acting like a peloton. You mentioned the comparison to cycling earlier on in the race, and these front three just switching positions. When one gets tired of leading the race, the other two will happily swoop in and use that opportunity. But Otis Lawrence, who hasn't finished better than P13 this season, currently leads the Grand Prix here in Belgium. He must be having a nosebleed with how high he finds himself currently amongst the field. Of course, the demise and the names that he has behind him, he knows what is at stake for himself. Recently signing with Aston Martin, and now he sees that British racing green car leading the field through 19 cars on the grid at the moment. Of course, Wilson Hughes DNFing or retiring earlier on in the session. 3 seconds to his name was a little unfavourable to himself, so he decides it's an early shower and a little bit trip back home. But Otis Lawrence will take us on to lap 13 of 22. No one on the hard tyre blinking yet, no one on the medium tyre blinking yet. Duncan Hoffland getting a couple of positions. We see Philippe Prejenader, Nicolas Longuet and Josh Ito into the pit lane then. Those are surely hard runners coming in. I think we might be seeing the medium runners going medium to soft.
Yeah, they're obviously trying something out really, really wild here, but we'll see what they decide to do. But Philip Preschner, Nicolas Longuet and Josh Ito, the first of the hard runners to blink. Now it might get a bit scrappy up front now. You can see Lawrence went a bit wide in towards turn 1, so now does Rasmussen fancy to go for the move here? No, he's actually going to sit behind. And Thomas Ronar also doesn't want to pass him either. Otmere thought about it as well. No way through for him either. Happy to sit behind on this lap by. So now you can see Preschner, Longuet and Ito on the mediums further down the order, and they've now got some clean air to work with. So these guys not blinking early. That is quite early to jump onto the medium tyres before the medium tyres who started the race have even pitted yet. So that's an interesting call from Preschner, Longuet and Ito, but they may as well try something.
Yeah, I think trying something different will never be necessarily a bad thing here in PSGL, especially with the DRS train we find ourselves here at the moment. The undercut almost could be a good blink, some free air, and then driving through the field when everybody else dives into that pit lane. But of course, securing that you don't have to share a pit box with anybody, because I think a few drivers could be caught out by that as we continue through this Grand Prix. 13 of 22. We're expecting the hard runners in probably in the next couple of laps. The medium runners probably not until lap 15 onwards, because if they're going for the soft tyre to see this race out, they are not going to want to do probably more than 5 or 6 laps on that Red Bull Pirelli tyre to see us to lap 22 of 22. As we swoop through, that's Barry Burman diving into the pits further back. The Ferrari deciding that he's going to follow his teammate 1 lap later. Tom Manley joins them, as does Alvaro Caraton and Tamas Gal as well. And I think that's a little bit of a lockup from Thomas Ronhaar into the first corner. And as we head towards Rouge and Radion up towards the hill, what are we going to see? Will it be Otis Lawrence leading as we finish off the Kemmel Straight?
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely some swaps up there. Otis Lawrence still in front for the moment, but I think Ronhaar fancies a go around the outside. He'll have the overspeed and he'll get through to the lead. Josh Ito sped on the way in, and he's going to now retire from the race, and unfortunately for him in that regard. So as you can see, Preschnader coming out by about 1.6 seconds in front of Barry Borman there. So that shows you the undercut is very powerful around here, but it's the case now. Do those tyres last as well as the others? So Preschnader in front of Bormand for the moment. Longuet and Bormand are now together on the circuits. The Ferraris can now work with each other. So that was obviously a call from Ferrari to get these two back together, and Bormand can now try and drag Longuet up towards the front of the order here if he possibly can, as the others go longer up front.
This could be a fantastic strategy from the Ferrari team. We know how powerful Slipstream has been. Of course, the reason it's got banned in the qualifying sessions as well. So we could see Barry Bowman and Nicolas Longuet working together like the team they once were to pull their way back through the field when everybody else jumps into the pit lane. It's not a long one here at Spa-Francorchamps, so we aren't expecting massive time loss for a lot of our drivers, but we do wait for our front three to dive into the pit lane. It was almost a move there for Otis Lawrence into the bus stop chicane. He had a minor thought about it as Thomas Ronhaar and Otis Lawrence both dive into the pit lane. Duncan Hoffland, Declan Barrett decide to join them, so Freddie Rasmussen, Jana Watmir and Danny Berezhny have some free air amongst themselves, but if they battle too hard, they could lose out to a lot of the other drivers that have pitted early.
They certainly have, and I love that Jake Benham is still going. He's trying something different, is Jake Benham. Let's see how that works out for him later. Soft tyres for Lenny Pepinter. Interesting call right there. They're definitely not going to last to the end, but we'll see how that works out. Otis Lawrence now coming out between the Ferraris. So Bormand comes out in front of Otis Lawrence, and Longuet now going to try get him up Eau Rouge, and Radion side by side up the hill. Wonderful stuff between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari, and Longuet gets the move done in front of Otis Lawrence up Eau Rouge, through Radion, down the Kemmel Straight. Now has to try and fend off the young Welshman as he goes round the outside. Lawrence gets in front of him just for a second there, but Longuet gets out in front. What a move from the Frenchman up Eau Rouge, through Radion, and he makes it through.
Beautiful move there, the determination as well on Otis Lawrence coming out of his pit box, trying to battle the two Ferraris who are so strong around here. He is no longer afraid of battling in amongst these big name drivers. He himself is becoming ingrained amongst them, and Otis Lawrence could mind himself on a very good result here later on in this race. Lap 15 of 22. It's a Ferrari bred containing an Aston Martin filling at the moment, and we'll wait and see when everybody else heads into the pit lane. But the two Rebels lead this Grand Prix. Freddie Rasmussen and Jana Watmir at the Ps1 and Ps2. Danny Berezhny in that Mercedes car, P3 for himself. We'll wait and see when anyone jumps the gun, and it is Danny Berezhny into the pits. So he frees up the two Rebel racing cars that decides to go very long here, as Jake Benham also into the pit lane. It's Van Pookie staying out, but a lot of penalties to that man's name. 13 seconds will be added at the end of the race, and that could be potentially game over before it's even started.
I've got a bit of a smile on my face now, TK. Jake Jake Benham has gone for the gamble and is on soft tyres. He's gone for the strategy and he's gone to soft tyres, has Jake Benham. So he's going to now slot out and try and close the gap here. But as you can see now, Ronar, Duncan Hoffland, Danny Beresney, they're all close together as they come up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion. Lawrence now right behind Nicholas Longue as they come down the Kemmel Straight once again, and they'll shuffle past and through, and Barry Borman as well will try and shuffle his way through and follow his teammate up the inside, and Borman goes through here. What I can say as well, Jarno Wotmere and Freddie Rasmussen still haven't stopped yet. They're working with each other. So after the pit stops now, there's a bit of movement behind Ronar, or down the inside of that is Nicholas Longue. He's fighting with it at the moment through the next part of the corner. Run around the outside. It's going to end in tears. Surely, how have they gone through there side by side through no name corner? And Ronar goes through. Now here comes Duncan Hoffland through Pouon. They go. Contact made. And now Longue picks up a penalty for track extension. And that is now going to put an end to his charge in this race. Being dragged through by his teammate, but they came through just about in one piece through there. So now it's all hotting up here in this Grand Prix. Jake Benham is opted for soft tyres. He's going to try and make his way through here. We'll see how that works out. Jarno Wotmere and Freddie Rasmussen out front working with each other. Rasmussen they're both going to pit at the same time. So Wotmere and Rasmussen both in from the lead of this race. And so now the question is, where is that going to filter them out? Because right now, TK, the man who's actually technically leading this race after the pit stops is Philip Preschnader.
Yep, he is indeed. It's man Pookie, 10 seconds to speeding the pit lane and then suitably retires as well to see off his race. But Philippe Preschnader will take the lead of the Grand Prix as Jarno Wotmere and Freddie Rasmussen drop down positions. P8 and P9 at the moment. Lenny Pepinter sets the fastest lap of the race. Soft tyres is what he's opted for alongside Shanaka Clay down in P15 and P14 respectively. But as you said, the McLaren reservist up into P1. Otis Lawrence, though, is not far behind, 4/10 and decreasing as we head through down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, so it's a battle of tyre life. Philip Preschnader with the oldest mediums on the grid. Otis Lawrence has 2 lap-old mediums. Longue's 4 lap-old mediums. Rasmussen and Wotmere the freshest of the lot. But that call from Jake Benham, I'm not so sure it's going to work out for him. He's in 13th place. He's got 1 lap old soft tyres, but they're going to go off very, very quickly. It is not making that much progress. So right now, out front, once again, Philip Preschnader has worked his way back into the lead here at Spa. He really loves it here, doesn't he? As he leads these guys around. But are those tyres going to fall off a cliff later on? Danny Beresney's worked his way back into this as well. Look where he is, 1 lap all medium tyres, and he's certainly in the fight here.
He certainly is indeed. Do not count out the Mercedes driver. Duncan Hoffland will be the driver that he's trying to pip out as they head through this lap down towards bus stop to finish off 17 of 22. We've got 5 laps of racing remaining once we cross that start finish line, and this still could be anyone's game. It's the 2 reservists currently leading out in the top end of your timing screens. Philippe Preschnader and Otis Lawrence. Danny Beresney almost thought about a move there on Duncan Hoffland for P5, but Barry Burman and Thomas Ronha holding it together. What has happened though to Nicholas Longue? The 2 Ferraris so close together when they came out of their pit stops, now separated by a considerable number of drivers.
They certainly are, yeah. It's going to get very, very tight up towards the front of these last few laps, but it's the question of whose tyres are going to hang on the best. Philip Preschnader has the oldest tyres out of anybody as they come now with 5 laps to go. Does anybody go for a move here? Otis Lawrence wants to go back to the lead of this race, and he will do so. Barry Borman trying to follow through as well, and he might get shuffled 3 abreast now, and suddenly Philip Preschnader goes from 1st to 4th in one straight, and Danny Beresney moves past Duncan Hoffland, and he's now P5 as well. And it is getting very interesting up front, but that shows you the power of the slipstream. The 3 of them line astern, and they all got through, and Philip Preschnader shuffled from 1st to 4th in a couple of 100 metres.
He certainly did indeed, but he will have his opportunity when the next time rolls around, when the next lap rolls around, and they see themselves on the Kemmel Straight with that DRS assistance. Do not count him out. Just because he's dropped a couple of positions does not mean that those tyres are completely dead and buried, but Danny Beresney might try and make it so, as he was looking for an optimistic move on the McLaren just in front of him. And of course, he can't count out Duncan Hoffland behind him, who has looked very, very quick this race as well, up P6. We're hearing reports potentially Jarno has damage, but I can't see it on the screen. So maybe just a little bit of an issue in that Red Bull Racing cockpit after the pit stops.
Certainly is, yeah. We'll wait and see if we get an update on that. But Jarno certainly not letting him stop him as he comes up towards the bus stop chicane. Outside line for Jarno Watmere on Duncan Hofflin. Can he outbreak his Dutch counterpart round the outside? Good respect as they come into the braking zone there. Onto the power they will go. Duncan Hofflin on the outside line. Will he fight him up towards turn number 1? No, he won't. And it's P6 now for Jarno Watmere, championship leader coming into this. And he's now going to try and make his further progress. He's got the freshest tyres of the guys in front now. Danny Beresnay, his next target, his former teammate. Otis Lawrence is leading. Barry Borman second. Thomas Ronnar third. He's now lining up. Barry Borman up towards the next part of the corner. They'll now cycle up towards the Kemmel straight and up towards the end of the straight now. Otis Lawrence goes a bit defensive and Barry Borman cycles to the front now as they enter the next part of the corner. A little bit of contact further back between Hofflin and Otmere, but it all comes through, no issues, and they make their way through safely. But Barry Borman now leads here at Spa.
He does indeed. I think Thomas Ronnar potentially getting flashbacks to Friday night in E-Series when he led onto the final lap, especially as they exited the Kemmel straight. He's going to be overly cautious potentially as we build up to that final lap. Lap 19 of 22 is where we currently find ourselves at the moment, but Danny Beresnay looking really closely on the back of the McLaren that stands in front of him. He's in the Mercedes. He's trying to chase down the McLaren of Philippe Presneder, and it's not going to be the way that he would have liked as long as that McLaren can stay in the DRS range of the Kick Sauber that stands in front of him. But the top three at the moment looking very, very solidly planted, and they will not want to give up positions easily for the rest of the drivers. As you said, Barry Borman leads the race. Jarno Watmere up to P5. Freddie Rasmussen getting in position back from Duncan Hoffland as well. He's up to P7. So our championship leader is up one. His teammate also up a position. Jarno Watmere up 2 positions. We've seen that move before, haven't we? Into bus stop chicane. And Jarno Watmere past Philippe Presneder for P4.
Great stuff. He got by Danny Beresnay before Blanchimont and then decided he wanted another one and got past Philip Presneder heading into the bus stop chicanes. And now P4 for Jarno Watmere. 3 lap old mediums. Everybody in front of him has got either 5 lap old mediums or 6 lap old mediums. Barry Borman at the front with 6 lap old mediums versus 5 lap old mediums for Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronnar, so the freshest tyres of anybody. Danny Beresnay now the next car to make a move on Philip Presneder, who's starting to drop through the order now in those medium tyres. More moves being made up front, 3 abreast down the Kemmel straight again, but they're not yielding this time, and Ronnar gets through. And watch for Jarno Watmere on the outside of Otis Lawrence into the next part of the corner, leaves a bit of room there, and as they come through, does he get the move done? No, he doesn't, but he does get in front of Barry Borman. There was a bit of contact heading into the braking zone. Not sure who was at fault, but none of them were yielding. They stayed 3 abreast through the corner, and they now sort themselves out. Jarno makes a place, but Ronnar was the big winner out of that. Now he's got a small gap to work with.
He does indeed. Jarno Watmere will be trying to chase down Otis Lawrence now for P2. He finds himself on that podium. Freddie Rasmussen up a position as well from Philippe Presneder. P6 is where he finds himself as we continue on to lap 20 of 22 of this Grand Prix. Thomas Ronnar holding on to the lead as things stand, but he again will not want to do it as they head into the final few laps. Tyres on your screens here as we head into the final 2 laps of racing. Penultimate lap is just a couple of corners away. Otis Lawrence could be his best result of this season at the moment. Jarno Watmere looking to extend his championship lead as we continue into the bus stop. Lap 21 and 22 beckons. Duncan Hoffland up past Philippe Presneder further back there, wheel to wheel, as they head through the bus stop chicane as well. McLaren just pipping out the Aston Martin there, but Duncan Hoffland has the traction to try and drag down towards the source into the braking zone. He has the move done, and this is the penultimate lap of racing here, Jack.
Yeah, now a bit of a gap out front, Thomas Ronnar and Otis Lawrence, but of course that will get reduced through slipstream as they head up through Eau Rouge and Radion once again, but I don't think he wants to be leading on this lap. Danny Beresnay now lining up Barry Borman. Rasmussen gets in the fight as well, but does he have enough overspeed? No, he doesn't, but Beresnay certainly does. They're going to get very close. Heading into the... Here comes Beresnay. Almost thought about getting past all of them into the braking zone, trying to sort themselves out. Beresnay sliding his way through the chicane, side by side with Borman. Now we'll try to move up to P4. Danny Beresnay, big move being made here as he comes down the inside. Borman fighting it all the way around the outside of the Brussels hairpin. Has to yield to Danny Beresnay, and it's P4 for him now as they head through the left-hander. Great move from Danny Beresnay in the Mercedes.
Yeah, fantastic move up to P4 for himself as we have a lap and a half of racing to go. This is going to be a fascinating end. Thomas Ronhard will not want to be leading into the final lap, but he has a bit of a choice to make as Barry Burmans gets past Freddie Rasmussen. He's going to have the outside line to take here. The Ferrari versus the Red Bull. They're still wheel to wheel as we head into the long right-hander. Can he hold off a big of a kick out there? There's still contact between the two of them. Freddie Rasmussen has gone round into the gravel. He's lost his front wing. It's heartbreak for Freddie Rasmussen.
And the stat continues. Nobody's won from pole this season. It carries on. And Freddie Rasmussen now jumped to the back of the order after the contact. So now, and his poor run of form continues, or his poor run of luck continues. But now we are heading onto the final lap of racing here at Spa-Francorchamps. Thomas Ronhard leads us across the line. Otis Lawrence sits in P2, but a certain Jarno Wotmir is sitting in P3. Where do you want to be? Which seat do you want to be in? Do you want to be in Otis's? Do you want to be in Otmir's? Do you want to be in Ronhard's? This is going to be the crucial move now. Up Eau Rouge and up Radillon for the final time. Does Ronhard have anything to defend with? Here comes Otis Lawrence in the DRS of the car in front of him now. The overspeed will be huge for the young Welshman as he comes down towards the chicane. There's nothing Ronhard can do about that. And Otis Lawrence now takes the lead on the final lap of the race.
He does indeed. Thomas Ronhard, who got the move done in E-Series last time around, the exact same corner, had the move, had the lead stolen from him at the bus stop chicane mere corners later. Otis Lawrence, if he's watched the game film, if he's done his preparations, will know what Thomas Ronhard has just set up. But do not discount and do not count out Jarno Wotmir here, because he is chomping at the bit. He is mere milliseconds away from the back of that Kicksauber. It all could still come crashing down in the final laps of racing, but Otis Lawrence at the moment is the driver that is holding the power, holds the wheel of fortune. The Aston Martin, he got announced earlier in the week through the couple right-handers. He's got a few more corners to contend with. Jarno Wotmir will try and make a move past Thomas Ronhard, but the two battling here could not be more of a fairy tale moment for Otis Lawrence as they head through the left-hander. Few more corners to contend with. They're side by side for a moment. Jarno Wotmir just backs out. Thomas Ronhard, who had the lead stolen from him at this exact moment. Jarno Wotmir could be going for the exact same move, this time for P2. Thomas Ronhard tries to defend it into bus stop chicane. Those two won't matter. Otis Lawrence rounds the final corner to take the checkered flag and win his first ever race in PSGL this season. Jarno Wotmir P2. Thomas Ronhard has had it stolen from him time and time again. That's twice in 1 week. Danny Beresnay taking the final podium positions as well.
What a finish, what a job from Otis Lawrence. Takes the victory here in Spa-Francorchamps. Mature drive, left it to the last moment and played it absolutely spot on. And he takes the victory here at Spa and becomes our 5th different winner in a row here this season. And the pole streak carries on. Rasmussen started on pole, ended in a retirement. Otis Lawrence takes the victory here at Spa. Jarno Wotmir extends his championship lead in P2, and that'll be a great job for him. Danny Beresnay, big point score for Danny Beresnay. He will be on the podium here in Spa. Ronhard finishes where he started in P4, had it stolen off him at the last moment. Barry Borman in P5. Philip Preschner hung on to take a 6th place. Declan Barrett finished in 7th. Nicholas Longue in 8th. Jake Benham from 18th managed to score some points in P9, and Alvaro Caraton rounds out the points scorers as well. So how about that? Otis Lawrence takes the victory from 2nd on the grid and becomes the 5th different winner here in PSGL this season. This is becoming a record-breaking season already.
It has been indeed. What a season we are seeing, and what a race win for Otis Lawrence. Down in P21 in the standings, he will certainly jump up them considerably. It could not have been a better dream race. His debut race for his new team. And Otis Lawrence, take a bow.
Incredible from Otis Lawrence. I mean, that's not his first PC victory. Of course, he has won here before on previous occasions, but that is certainly a way to announce why you were signed to Aston Martin. Your first race in their colours, and you come out with a victory in PCF1, beating Jarno Wotmir, Danny Beresnay, Thomas Ronhard, Barry Borman, all the big names coming out on top right there. But Otis Lawrence, what a drive, and he takes maximum points away from here. And Thomas Ronner will take the will again leading the final lap, and again not quite working out for him this season. But again, he does get some points on the board. But Rasmussen, what is going on? Again, the run of poor luck is continuing.
It certainly has. It was almost like it was doomed from the beginning. The moment he got that pole position, we said it time and time again before the broadcast started that no one has won from pole this season in PSGL. Freddie Rasmussen makes it 5 out of 5 in this season's races. And I wonder, as we head to next round, will that continue when we head to Mexico in a week's time?
Well, considering the length of the run down towards turn 1, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this season now. But what we do know, Jarno Wotmeijer has extended his lead in the championship with P2 there. Danny Beresnay has certainly, I think, managed to. He's certainly going to move himself up a few places with that as well, or get himself close to the title fight at the very least, and with a point score for P3 with a great podium from him as well. But Jarno will cement his lead in the championship for now. Of course, we had no Brendan Lee and no Lucas Blakely this week, so he'll again be happy with scoring good points from that, and he'll be looking to try and secure yet another PCF1 title. I think he'll be going for his 6th at this rate, but it's incredible. Continues to perform, but we'll be waiting to see how that turns out. But I can say it's been also a bit of a better week in some regards, because normally the drivers are really slow to come and chat to us. But thankfully, we do have Otis Lawrence is already waiting. He's probably still trying to calm himself down from that race right there. So let's drag him in and have a chat, will we? Otis, welcome to the commentary box once again. Have you calmed down yet?
I'm not as shouty as I was in the previous races, should I say? But I'm happy.
Good, yeah. I mean, that's one way. Of course, we announced at Aston Martin in the last week. I mean, that's not a bad way to announce your arrival, is to take a victory here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy. I mean, my engineers did insane. Duncan did a great job as well. Recovering from, I think it was P10. So yeah, I'm very thankful to the team. I mean, we've been working so well this game. I mean, it blew me out the park, honestly, how good this team is at the moment, and how happy I'm at this team. And yeah, it's gonna be really good for this esports season, because I'm feeling very confident on this game. And yeah, I've got a really good team behind me as well, so I can feel like I can push for more wins like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, this is you've had to wait a long time, I suppose. It feels like ages that you've had to wait to try and get into F1 esports this season. So, you're obviously settling into the team quite well, and the target is to compete this year.
Absolutely. You know, I'm just trying to do my best as always. You know, even if I don't win, I know I have great pace anyway. I always have good pace, even on if I have a bad result like the other results. So yeah, that's the main thing. And yeah, I'm very happy.
Now, just go back to that final lap. I mean, how hard is it to control yourself to not overtake two riders? Obviously, you've got to time that exactly to make sure that you're not going to get overtaken towards the end. I mean, there's obviously probably a lot of chatter going on to try and time that overtake to perfection.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's peak position to be in second, because you never want to be first on the last lap, otherwise you're finishing second or below. So I just tried staying in second. It's quite we're quite slow going into Le Com. I'm not sure if you guys seen it, but we were really slow. But yeah, I'm happy it worked out. We played to perfection today, and yeah, hopefully we can do that in the next few races.
Absolutely. TK, you got anything? Guess not.
Apologies. But I have my moment. It's always one of those days. Dream debut for yourself for Aston Martin as well. Of course, signing earlier on in the week. Talk us through how that must have felt to be able to get that race victory for your team.
Yeah, I mean, this team is brilliant, man. Like I can't tell you how good this team is. You know, everyone's working so well. Everyone, devs, engineers, and drivers. So yeah, it's a very promising season for this team, especially debut race for winning. So yeah, I'm happy. This team, brilliant. I'm speechless, honestly. This team's just insane.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we look forward to chatting to you more, and of course, hopefully more race victories for yourself on the horizon as well. Looking forward to Mexico. How are your chances faring for that one? If you obviously manage to get yourself back in the seat.
I'm not really sure. I haven't driven much Mexico in this game, so I will see. We'll see. We'll try and carry this pace on, and yeah, see what happens.
Amazing stuff. I did. Congratulations on the
Thank you,
race
man.
win, and we'll catch you again very soon, mate.
Appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Very much did. Well, Jack, fantastic to speak to our race winner as always. I think we've got second place. We've got Danny Beresney in the comms box as well for a little bit of a chat.
We certainly do. Danny is with us. So, of course, picking up P3 today, Danny. I mean, it was right at the death, but he managed to get it done in the end.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is my first podium of this PSGL season, so I'm really happy about it. First qualifying session, so it's a little bit of a weird experience because in Bahrain I got pole, in Britain I got P3, then in Jeddah I got P5, but here I only got P11, and this is my favorite track, so definitely need to work on one lap pace. But the race was just amazing. Strategy was perfect. And I didn't want to do this strategy. I have to admit, my engineer was forcing me to, and I'm really happy that I'm learning to uh, accept what the professionals say and don't do stupid things, because the overcut was fantastic. So I have to give gratitude to John to get the first podium of the season.
Yeah, so we obviously thought as well the undercut obviously very powerful, but it must have been very hard to resist the urge to try and undercut people in front. But it obviously worked for you.
Yes, well, I had the good top speed, and I thought that I'm in front of the train. I can just always stay there, but that's not exactly how it works. Tire wear is actually surprisingly high on this track. So even though the undercut is strong, if you are smart with battery management, then you can win the race.
Absolutely, yeah. Now we've seen on this game, obviously the slipstream incredibly powerful. We were talking to Otis there about timing your overtakes. There must be a lot of thought that has to go into making moves on this game, because I mean we've seen guys come from so far back to making overtakes from half the straight back. There's obviously that has to be an element this year.
Yeah, well, I'm not super happy with how the ERS system works. I'm very happy to have more control, but I think the battery should be like double the capacity, so it charges half the pace and also it discharges half the pace. Because the thing is that everyone can basically charge themselves up into the middle sector, and everyone starts the long straights in kind of identical situation. The only time you can really overtake people is when they are in a battle and they discharge themselves too early, and then you are basically the lucky third. But I think in terms of PRS management, last year's game was a little bit more strategical in terms of more long term of how you plan your race. But I'm really happy to have more control, but I would still tune it a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely something new for everyone and something to learn.
Absolutely, TK.
Yeah, first of all, fantastic race from yourself. 2 P4s over the current season at the moment. Must feel good to finally get your name on that podium as well.
Yes, it feels good.
Are we looking for a Danny Beresney race win going forward in the season as well? Is that potentially on the cards later in the season?
Well, I was hoping that it's on the cards on this track today, because this is meant to be my strongest one, but I still need to do more work, especially on the qualifying. I'm really happy with the race pace. It's just one lap pace this time, which is a bit more unusual for me compared to the previous seasons when it was kind of the opposite.
Yeah, always tricky. It's such a long track. Like we find ourselves at Spa, and obviously looking ahead to Mexico next week. How are you looking forward to that track when we find ourselves going to South America?
Well, I don't really like Mexico, to be honest. The racing will be surely good, but yeah, the scanning of that circuit is quite different to real life. Whole second sector is flat in today's game, and especially with Mexico City being elevated 2,000 meters over sea, real cars don't have close to this much downforce that we have here. So it's basically a fantasy circuit. That's how I call it, to be honest. and the layout is fine, but it's just the furthest one away from reality. But to be honest, I don't care. I only care about lap times and the position I finish in.
Fantastic attitude to have. Well, we look forward to seeing you out on track next week at Mexico. Fantastic result today, and we look forward to many more interviews in the future as well.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, everyone.
You too. Wow, Jack, what a race we've seen. It all came down to that final corner, almost the final lap, final lap and the final corner as well. Almost like we were kind of predicting at the start of the race, but there was drama non-stop. I don't think anyone led that for more than 3 or 4 laps at a time, and that is something of a perfect Grand Prix in my eyes.
Seemingly, but at the same time, that is actually probably the race with the least amount of action we've seen so far this year, which is kind of mad. But it again was a great race to watch. Strategically, not as interesting as the other ones. I mean, I have to go back to Silverstone for the wet Inter thing. That was mental. But there's plenty more to come in this season. Of course, as we said, we're going to Mexico for the next one, and I do love it when stats keep going. I really do. We've got 5 different winners, and Pole yet again has A not won and B not made the podium so far this year. So I don't think that's ever happened before this season. Pole used to be the strongest place to start. But now it seems to be the weakest place to start. So maybe guys will start getting themselves knocked out in Q2 on purpose now.
Well, you never know what can happen, especially when you have your esports engineers in your ear and all the crazy strategies that they may come up with. But yeah, as you said, continuing on for at least another week here, potentially even more into the future. But that does sum up our race. That does finish off our broadcast, Jack. Where can they check you out if they want to do so just a little bit more?
Of this beautiful graphics new for this season. That's the wrong hand. It's there. It's mirrored. There we go. Let's go. That's at JackCcoms on Twitter/X. You can find me there. Not as active anymore, but if you fancy it, just go for it. I don't really mind.
Amazing stuff. If you want to check me out, wrong hand as well. It's right there at the bottom. They call me TK on pretty much everything. Something with the little underscore in front as well. But that has been us in the commentary box. Thank you so much for tuning in at home, cheering on your favourite drivers as well. And we will see you same time, same place next week when our drivers head to Mexico. Good night and God bless.